Hello and welcome to unMadeGaming, guys. We are back on this lovely, cold, frosty Wednesday, for me at least, here for the penultimate episode of 6 and 20, The Shroud. So, with us here, so fresh and so clean, out of the shower, looking great, looking awesome, looking hot, looking moist. Johnny, who are you? What are you doing here? And what are we doing tonight?
I have no idea what we're doing yet because we now have 2 episodes instead of 1 episode. So yeah, there's a little bit more breathing room here. Probably want to make that as a part of the announcement, but yeah. Otherwise, I'm Johnny. I'm the GM for 6 and 20, which takes place across 3 different channels. We've got Tuesday on my channel, Wednesday night here, and then Thursday night over on Not So Speedrun's channel. Yeah, and I'm still trying to figure out exactly how things are going to play out, guys. So I'm going to throw it back to you while I still do that. So
sweet. Jumping over to a man who had a very recent RPG hangover. Greg, who are you? What are you doing here? And have you recovered from like 7 games in a week?
No, but I am Greg, Grimjack21502 on Twitch and Twitter, as Crit Dice Gaming will so often remark. But I'm here playing the lurk known as Steam, who has a god complex. And we've got plenty to do tonight, Johnny. We can keep you... I can stutter for a good half hour. And then you guys just have a couple more minutes to fill out. But until then, let's see what we got.
Are you really that drunk?
We've seen it.
Not yet. Not yet. I will get there progressively.
Give him 45 minutes.
Yeah, come back to around 9:15, 9:20, and I should be good and sauced by then.
Good. I like it. So, speaking of the one, the only Crit Dice Gaming, who dressed as the Bower Bomb for Halloween, and if he tells you otherwise, he's lying to you. Slade, who are you? What are you doing here? And who are you playing tonight?
So I'm returning back as Reymond Bowerstone, and some interesting things have happened because I read the rule book. But anyway, I'm Slade for Crit Dice Gaming and RPG Twitch variety streamer here on Twitch. You can follow me, and yeah, that's where you'll find me.
Sweet. And last but definitely not least, the myth, the woman, the legend, the Orange Crush. Miss Ginger Ninja, who are you? What are you doing here? And who is Orange Crush?
As we were discussing, she may or may not have a name. But I am Xmas Ginger Ninja. I play video games over on my channel. I'm part of the unMadeGaming team for Extra Life. This Saturday is a bunch of Extra Life stuff, so you guys go ahead and donate. But I'm here twice a week, and I'm pretty pumped for tonight. I totally thought it was the finale, and it's not, so good. More time to kill people and do things.
That's true. Speaking of Extra Life, I will not be streaming this Saturday or this weekend really at all for Extra Life because I have military duty all weekend. However, a good friend of the channel, a good friend of mine, you guys may know him as Encounter Mitch at one point in time, he and his lawyery nerd friends are getting together to stream on a buddy's channel, and I will be hosting them all day Saturday while they stream their 12 hours from 7 a.m. Eastern, I think, to 7 p.m. Eastern. So definitely go check those guys out and donate to their team as well for some Extra Life stuff and show your support for the once Encounter Mitch, now full-time lawman, 0 time for RPGs. Yeah, so that's it, guys. Just the top of the stream here. I'd like to remind you guys that we have a giveaway while Johnny's still setting things up. We have a giveaway going on for 2 things. One for 6 and 20. That is an art giveaway. You guys can submit poems, art, songs, movies, whatever you want, for a chance to win a copy of the game. We're also doing a giveaway for Simba Room, which is currently in Kickstarter for their Monster Codex. Miss Ginger Ninja is playing that game on Sunday here on the channel. Greg is nodding politely because not only does he love the art, but he can't wait to sink his teeth into that game. And you guys can win one of 3 copies of the PDF starter bundle by typing !giveaway in the chat. And just as a reminder, you guys can interact with the show tonight by hitting that donate button, donating for crits, nat ones, advantage, disadvantage, all kinds of fun stuff. Just go ahead and hit that button. And Johnny, take us into the dark world of Doskvol.
So, actually, what I'd like to do is I'd like to have either OC or Steam tell us what happened at the end of last week, because it was such an interesting and significant event. I think it's important that one of them retell it, because in each case, they both ended up in a very different position in the game than we originally expected them to at the start of it. So who would like to talk about it?
I'm going to need Steam to narrate it in detail, but as Steam. I'm going to need that from you. Is that okay? I feel like I don't ask a lot of you. I feel like you need to do this.
Well, I'm not effectively sauced yet, so I can tell you what happened on last week's episode of the Shroud. At the end, the two gods were able to quell both forces of the crows and of the red sashes by decapitating two of the bosses in charge. The now double-headed gods were able to make them bend the knee.
It's the best day ever. I feel like
And so,
like
OC,
Christmas.
why were you guys cutting the heads off of an Eruvian lieutenant, or sorry, Red Sash's lieutenant and Martin Gold?
So, we went to the Eruvian consulate and spoke to the general, and we made a deal with him that we would have control over the Red Sashes as they gain a new leader. We would have control, and we would have some of their forces to add to our stone cloaks as we are making peace in the city. And in return, they'll get more profit. We gave them a lot to go with. We were going to strengthen their numbers, help the school, and he wanted us to kill Mr. Gull. And we were already on that path. So we decided, sure, why not? Two birds, one stone. We got there, and one of the Red Sash's lieutenants, without there being a leader, was taking it upon himself to make a dirty deal. So it was a twofer, because fuck that. You don't do that. No.
Okay, awesome. So there was a lot of moving and shifting, and the deal with the Eruvian consulate general and the circumstances of essentially eliminating the current sort of in charge person for the crows puts you all in a pretty interesting and significant position right now. So we did XP off screen because we went a little bit long last week. We didn't do payoff or anything else. So let's start there. What do you guys think is the size of this particular score? Because there's a couple of competing factors here, right? It is significant, but it was against factions, essentially, or gangs or crews that were actually lower than the Shroud at this point. So where does this fall into the scale of, well, yes, it's a pretty awesome, huge thing, but in the relative terms of power and the power dynamics, it was almost a little minor. So where does that begin with us? Where do we start with that? What does that mean? Does that mean that it was a small job? Was it a standard score of some kind? Or can you make an argument for why this would be a big score?
I think it was pretty standard. It impacted it wasn't small because it impacted two groups in their leadership. So that's pretty big in and of itself just for looking at Crow's Foot. But it doesn't affect the whole world much. But it does help him in terms of being alderman because...
Well, right.
I think it affects the foundation of Crow's Foot.
But right. So you've already done a significant amount of work towards that with eliminating leadership in the Red Sashes. You were only dealing with a minor lieutenant at this point who was, from all intents and purposes in your observation, stepping out of the norm, right? You doing something that would not be considered okay in the in the acceptable terms of what the Red Sashes would expect as normal behavior from any of their lieutenants or any of their subordinates. So not only that, you also have, a ragtag gang of the crows at this point who are just struggling to get back on their feet after the circumstances of the warehouse explosion. So even though it involved two different crews, they were in a really diminished state, and Martin Gold represented the last legs of who the crows really were in respect to their ability to hold any type of power in Crow's Foot. So I agree with you that it's significant that there were two crews there, but one of them was really diminished and the other was on their last legs. So
yeah, well, I'm saying for standard. I'm arguing for standard.
Okay, all right.
But I'm saying that solidifies standard because we're building on that. Even though it's a little bit to other people, it's part of the big picture for us.
Okay, all right. Okay, so that means that is 6 coin. Now, from a rep perspective, crows are definitely. So you're going to start with two rep right at the top. Neither crew was of a higher tier. In fact, both were at least one tier or more below you. So in this particular case, this is one of those weird things where I almost say, because you guys aren't actively saying, or you at least what you left me with last week was you're not going to actively advertise that the Shroud killed Martin Gold, who would be the named figure, who would be, you know, a representative of, you know, or who would be, you know, something significant. I almost feel like you guys didn't actually earn any reputation from this. What does the table think about that? I mean, because this is, again, the crows are 2 tiers down from you guys at this point. They're diminished all the way back to 1. Their sashes are very much in the tier 2 category, and they're diminishing very quickly. So give me a reason why you guys would have any positive rep coming out of this whatsoever.
It would be minor, but I would say because of the general, because of the Eruvian consulate, because that is a inn that we had not had before. And this was our first, like our test run, so to speak, with them. And last week when we were talking with him, he seemed almost like it was a challenge. You bring me the head of Gaul and you have a deal, you know, not like, well, this could possibly work. Yeah. You know, it was almost, he wasn't sure if it was going to work. He didn't know what to think about us. That in and of itself has to be rep. I'm not saying a lot. I'm saying that was a new avenue, a new street we had just walked down. And I think that in and of itself should get us at least a little rep, because
okay.
It's, you know.
I agree with that. And like adding to that maybe it's, even if it's just 1 rep, that maybe because these people aren't going to not tell anyone. They're going to go back to their people, the crows and the sashes, even though they're lower tier. Word's going to spread in Crowsfoot that people aren't allowing stuff like this to happen.
Okay, so I was going to hold off on this particular question until heat, but I think that this plays into rep as well. What did you guys actually do then with the scene? Your Eruvian, so essentially the Eruvian soldiers that were left stood up after kneeling to Steam and basically followed him out as if he was the disciple, you know, as if they were disciples. They were, as I described it last week, based on his crit and based on the description with which he narrated the circumstances of killing Martin Goal. Or no, it was at the Eruvian general, or sorry, the Eruvian lieutenant.
I got the lieutenant. No, he took out the Martin.
Right, it was the Eruvian lieutenant. But the way that you did that, it was as if they were seeing the, you know, the boogeyman, the Eruvian equivalent of the boogeyman. You were the story that they were told as children as to what that was, you know, what was scary. So, if you didn't make any effort to actually hide any of that, and it sounded like you guys really didn't care about the circumstances, then yeah, absolutely. That definitely plays into rep, along with what Greg is talking about in respects to the Eruvian general. So I'm going to give you guys 2 heat because each of those, or sorry, two rep, because each of those in their own way makes a lot of sense for a point of rep, which is completely out of the context of the normal way rep is done, but it was such a significant event and it was such a defining moment for the Shroud that I think it's important that you guys get recognition in that respect. With all that being said, that means 2 rep and 6 coin. Now let's talk about heat. So this is not even remotely smooth and quiet. This, arguably, given the way you guys walked out, could not necessarily be argued as contained. So to me, it's at minimum, and there's got to be a good reason for it, why it's contained. It's at least, in my head, loud and chaotic, or even potentially wild and devastating.
We still have all of the people following us out right now.
Oh,
all of the crows and all of the sashes are single file, terrified, following us out of this drug den right now.
No, my understanding was that it was the Eruvians, only the red sashes, not the crows, because the Eruvians were the ones who recognized the power of Steam and his, you know, the ghost out, you know, the boogeyman out of their folklore. I don't think we talked about how the crows stood up and did that as well. They were more just kind of frightened over the death of not only the Eruvian lieutenant, but also Martin Gull. If we want to say that they did do that, then let's talk a little bit more about that circumstance so I understand the actual impact of what that means on Heat.
Okay, trending, go back and look. I thought it was both groups. I thought it was everyone single file out because I thought we did that on purpose. I could be wrong. I just want to be sure because I thought we were doing this on purpose because someone's going to be visiting the crows.
I thought that when you described it, Johnny, it was both groups knelt. The crows didn't do it out of the abject fear of the legendary fairy tale.
They did it out of fear for their lives.
Fear of their lives, right. And whenever I led everybody out like the Pied Piper, everyone laughed. Like we all laughed together.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, if that's not the case, the crows aren't leaving that room. So it'll be contained.
This was under the assumption everyone was following us. That's where we left it off. So if they can't do that, then we need to rework the ending of the last episode.
Well, then that's got to be a flashback and it's got to be something else. Because in my head, based on what we did previously, I thought it was just the Eruvians. And I remember saying that it was the Eruvians that only stood up and followed Steam out.
Okay, let me ask this, Johnny.
Okay.
Could I tell the Eruvians to bring the crow? Because there were more Eruvians than crows.
No, there were more crows than the Eruvians. There were 5 Eruvians and there were 6 crows behind Gold.
Wow, well, we can kill them if we need to.
Okay. Anyways, so we can hand wave it to some degree and say that if it was both the crows and the Eruvians, then that happens. But that still does not say that it wasn't loud and chaotic. So I need a good argument.
So it's quiet and contained, loud and chaotic, and what's the other one?
Wild and devastating. And then it is a scale from 2 to 6 heat, respectively.
I don't think it's wild and devastating.
I would say when you guys ended this, it wasn't quite clear how you left the scene in the situation, which is one of the reasons why, although Speedy was really bugging me about it on Saturday, I did not mention the fact that Gull was dead because it wasn't clear to me how you guys left the situation.
Oh, I mean, we left the 2 corpses there with no heads and blood everywhere.
Yeah,
right. But his corpse would be easily recognized.
Yeah, but the drug den was completely empty. Like we asked walking in if it was empty, and the only people in there were the gangs that were there.
Right, but eventually somebody will come looking to the drug den because the Sashes and the Eruvians still have some interest in the activity that was on there.
So the question is. They'll find Gull dead. That's no problem. We don't really give a shit.
Loud and chaotic. That's fine.
The question is, do they know it's us?
Oh no! Well, so regardless of whether they know it's you or not, that's not what heat determines.
Right, but
heat determines the amount of interest, it determines the amount of interest on the events itself.
Okay.
And because of how significant you guys are in your activities and how you're really not playing so much in the shadows anymore,
then loud and chaotic.
There's a certain amount of interest in the events, regardless of how much regardless of who you identify yourselves.
It's loud and chaotic then.
Yeah, I would say loud and chaotic, but how we left it off, they all definitely left the den. So we left bodies. It's still loud and chaotic, but the only reason I know for a fact how we left it is because I'm going to take the Sashes and talk to them, and then go see the general. And Nyx is not allowed to go see the general, so he was going to go see the crows with the crows that are with them. That was that was our intention. That's the only reason I thought it ended that way.
Okay,
I could be wrong.
Well, we're gonna. Okay, so regardless of, I know Trende may be going back and checking it out, but regardless of how that happened, what we're gonna do is we're gonna call it crows. The crows were let out reluctantly. The Sashes followed Steam. The Sashes followed Steam. Almost religiously, with reverence and fear. The crows just fearing for their life. The Sashes fearing for their souls, kind of a situation. Now, with all that being said, if it's loud and chaotic, that's 4 heat to start with. Not high-profile targets, although Gull could be considered that. That's factored into the loud and chaotic at this point, so I'm not going to add the +1 there. Did this happen in a hostile turf? That's up for discussion in some sense, but I'm not going to say no. I'm not going to say yes. You are not technically at war with any of these. No. However, there was murder. And it is big murder, and murder, killing regardless, is 2 heat. So unless anybody can think of a reason why that +2 heat factors into the loud and chaotic, I think that you guys end up with 6 heat after this. Which is why I'm glad that you have a bunch of downtime so that you can start dealing with that. Because you've got, what, 9 heat now?
Yep.
With a wanted level of 1?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's 6 heat altogether. All right. Now, wanted level of 1. Entanglements. Let me go ahead and roll that real quickly in the background. Let's see how that actually goes. Rolling it twice as usual because of your... Okay, great. No problem. Cool. Now, downtime actions. 4 of them, because you guys decided to skip downtime actions last week from the Eruvian consulate conversation. From the score. That means you guys have 4 altogether. It's very nice that we have an extra week. That means you guys get to actually do these and get some things done before hitting into the finale. Who wants to go first, and who wants to do what?
Yeah, I got this.
Okay.
I'm going to get rid of that heat.
Okay. And how are you going to do that?
So I'm going to go around and on the wagon, the whole vote for Bowerstone, but he's going to be going around the Crow's Foot district where the shenanigans happen to make peace with the people and things are lovely and everything. And there's no need to be concerned that we're going to kill you all one day.
Okay. So it's more of a sort of a goodwill, kind of press hand to flesh kind of a situation?
Yeah, because I imagine if people around heard about it, that it might freak a few citizens out. But don't worry, people. We're here. The future is bright.
Well, so this is... Okay, this makes a lot of sense because, again, you're dealing with a couple of different circumstances. You actually haven't dealt with the fallout from the Eruvian school, but there was a significant amount of churn in that particular situation. So rumors are starting to float onto the street a little bit about what's going on there. Nothing definite. And with this circumstance as well, okay, so go ahead and roll it.
Cool.
And we're going to call that a consort or a sway?
I'm going to go for a sway.
Okay. Remember, no position or effect.
How them 3s treat me.
Those 3s give you, I believe it's just a reduction of 1. Yeah.
Oh, look, so we're doing it again. We're coming around for a return tour.
Okay. So that's perfectly fine. Why don't you go ahead and do that same exact set of rolls again? All right, that's another 2. So
I will turn this wagon around.
Are you going to go a third time?
Yes.
Okay. So you've sort of navigated all of Crow's Foot to press hand to flesh.
Mm-hmm.
People are seeing you on the streets, or seeing you in the wagon on the streets. Describe to me something different that you're going to do to do the next phase of that, because there's only so much goodwill and baby kissing that's going to...
So this time, he's actually going to, instead of going on wagons, he's going to go into public places like squares, shops, taverns, bars, and speak with the people, see how they are, see what their concerns are, pretend to care. Okay,
so this actually leads me into... I'm glad you said this, because this leads me into the next bit of news as you're doing this. Go ahead and roll it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's another 2, so it does you a fair bit of effort. So right, that's a reduction of 5 altogether so far. And as you're doing this, you realize that there are more and more people on the streets, right? And you're able to carry this information back. And when you carry this information back to Nyx and the rest of the crew, you discover that the Rooks have just let you know that the complete lockdown of Crow's Foot has come, to an end just in time prior to the election.
Oh, sweet.
Okay, so that's 3 downtime actions focusing on heat. You've done okay. You're rolling like Patrick and his ability to not indulge vice. what do you want to do for your 4th downtime action?
I want to indulge Vice.
Okay.
I have 4 stress. So after all this campaigning, he's going to go and have a moment alone in his private room and get out his expensive whiskey and just down it in a disgusting, luxurious way.
Okay, go ahead and roll your vice.
Oh, thank goodness.
Okay. All right. So you're now down to 1 stress.
Mm-hmm.
That is 4 easy downtime actions. What would you like to do next? Would you like to end it there, or do you want to pass it, or do you want to?
I'm gonna end it there.
Okay, great. Who wants to go next?
I'll go next real quick.
Okay.
I am going to train twice I'm going to train pretty much 2 things and then the same 2 things in my second downtime. So it's going to be resolve and prowess. I'm going to be attuning.
Okay, so you're going to do resolve and then prowess and then resolve and then prowess?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I'm going to be attuning, once the first time, once the second time, and I'm going to be doing skirmish.
Okay. Is there anything significant about those particular moments of training? I mean, because that's like we can just like compile it into one big montage.
Yeah, it's pretty much, her fighting is pretty obvious. She's killing people, and the more stressed out she gets and frustrated she gets that she hasn't found Nye yet, the more she wants to fight. And there's no one to fight right now, so she's training with either Steam or one of her rooks.
Okay.
And then the attuning is she's thinking if she can just hone her skills, like reading the books, looking through things, seeing if there's anything that she can do to kind of find her, help herself to find her. She knows she's not a whisper, but she thinks somehow it'll help.
Okay, great. And so that's 4 downtime actions then.
Yep, and I'm good.
Okay, all right. Who wants to go next?
Steve, you got this.
Yeah, I can go ahead and do mine. I had 2 training. I was going to train in playbook twice. One in the first downtime actions, one in the second downtime actions. And I was also going to indulge vice.
Train playbook.
Yeah.
You can't actually train playbook.
You can. It's actually in the book.
Where in the book? Because training requires an attribute.
It doesn't. I'll find out. Hold on a second.
All right. So what is the 3rd downtime action you want to do?
I learned it by watching Mike. That's the only reason why I did it.
It's actually not. You actually cannot do it.
It's in the book.
I know it's in the book, but we've never.
I'll find it. Carry on. Go.
I'm waiting for the 3rd one. Now, Mike or Steam, go.
Yes. Indulge vice.
Okay, go for it.
Poop.
Okay.
I'm going in again.
All right. So, because there's the potential of you overindulging, and given how RNG is not playing in anybody's favor just yet, I'd like you to describe both times of indulging vice so that I know what the result, what the possible consequences are going to be.
Okay. The first time that the stress would have, he would have gone for stress relief would have been right after the ascension. In between the two, he would have had to have reduced stress at that point to try to bring it down a little bit. So that would have been the normal standard fare that he usually does. The choir just going in, having the normal, people coming in and attending to him, and Colonel Womack, seeing to all of his needs. And it's a standard thing, which I think is reflected in the fact that it was only a reduction of 2. The second time he went in, however, would have been after the assassination of the lieutenant, where he had to use a 4-level ghost veil, and then he pushed himself. So this, in conjunction with the other thing I wanted to do too, is I don't know when exactly he would get Sling's message to him. So I sort of want to wait and hold that until the finale, because it doesn't make much sense for him to kind of pocket certain information. But this would have been more like, I was thinking about this as stress relief. He just found out about slaying, and it's more of an aggression. It's more of an indulging vice here would be narratively correct. You know, his veneer is starting to crack a little bit. The things that he believed are starting to fracture a little bit, because if his sister is leaving, that throws into doubt a lot of the prophecy and a lot of the gospel and stuff that he has kind of formulated in his own mind. So if he's taking that burden with him to the choir, if he would indulge here, you know, get a 5 or 6 here, it could possibly result in him doing something that would get him thrown out of the choir. Does that make sense?
You're muted.
Sorry, let me just be clear about this, since we are talking about consequences here. What you just proposed was that if he overindulges and gets thrown out of the choir, that will be a tapped vice.
Correct.
Okay, you're suggesting that. You think that makes appropriate sense?
I would think so, because if he behaves incorrectly in a place like the choir's been established as soon as he goes in, it's not necessarily like the veil, but as soon as he goes in, it's a place of meditation, of sensuality, of quiet, of meditation. If he would go in there and lose his shit, you know, just it doesn't work, or it works to the point where he just gets drawn back to the idea of his sister leaving, of throwing into doubt his prophecy, and doing something that kind of compromises the entire business structure of the choir, Turner would throw him out.
Okay, I just want to make sure that that we understand each other with this, because it's that's a significant event you're suggesting there.
Yeah, but narratively it's pretty cool. You know?
Narratively, it's awesome and it makes sense. I just want to make sure that I clearly understand you, because if that happens, I just don't want to, I don't want it to be like not part of the story that you want to tell, because that would suck, right? Because I think the circumstances around OC getting tapped when she overindulged that one time, I think that was a little bit unexpected and made for a great transition into where her vice went. I just want to make sure that you're okay with it. That's all.
Right, and to be clear too, yes, this would the choir would be closed to him for however long a tapped place is closed. If it's forever, it's forever. If it's 6 months, it's 6. Okay. If it's closed, it's closed. But his vice is pleasure, i.e. worship, i.e. adulation. So,
right, but he would have to go and find a new place for it. The choir would no longer be his purveyor. The choir would no longer be available to him, and that might have an impact moving forward on you narratively.
Correct.
Not just on your vice, but also on your story.
Right. No, I was just clarifying, because we're clarifying here, and I don't want to take too much time. But OC said, anybody can feed from my lore. That's one of the things he does. It's been established that when he went to the choir, one time all he did was just sit there and listen to the music play. It was just playing a hymn for him. It was anything that kind of shows him, feeds into that God complex horse shit that he loves so much. That's the parameters, but it's readily available at the choir. He can walk in and have it done. If the choir's closed, this is going to be much more difficult for him to establish.
Absolutely, and that's the whole thing, right? It's like at the end of the day, it would be like to use a much simpler example for drug use.
Right.
The contract and the relationship that Sky set up with Sling early on in their relationship as players and characters was, he would be the only source of her drug of choice. If she got tapped out for some reason, he would no longer be able to provide for it. So it's no longer an easy avenue for her to acquire that. And she would not be able to do she would not be able to essentially indulge until she found another purveyor, which could be, it's just a whole narrative thing. So using the simple drug analogy, you would essentially be using your drug, your the person providing the drugs. So the choir would be gone from you. Okay, with all that sort of like whoa, what's going on, established. Let's go ahead and roll. You are so fucking lucky.
I'll talk for nothing.
I'm Steam.
All right, so you guys are right. Sorry, it's on page 55, as Mike pointed out in the private chat. So go ahead and do those 2 playbook advancements.
Okay, and then I would like to buy one more with a coin.
No, I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay, never mind then. I will
go for it. What's up?
I would like to quickly advance my orphans.
Advance your orphans.
Yep.
Advance orphans.
My clock, my downtime, my long-term project clock.
You would like to advance your long-term project orphans. Okay.
My steaming brood.
I thought you were growing orphans.
So, where we last left off, you had established that you had visited an orphanage or a set of orphanages. You had found the Taikirosi children, and you had started to show up to them, thus kind of establishing the benevolent, imaginary friend kind of a situation. Although you really appeared to them, you were kind of serving to just kind of bolster their confidence and make them think that they had somebody who was their friend, an adult who was their friend, etc., etc. What does that mean next? What is the next thing you're doing when bringing in your brood?
As we identified last time, and like I said, I want to speed through this as much as narratively possible. He was training the one that was getting beaten the most, because the Taikirosi are notoriously preyed
abused.
upon. Yeah, abused, because there's racial tensions, they're the strangers, they're the whatever. So he identified the one that was getting the most abuse, and he began to train that child to defend his or herself. And he was just building from there. Then it was, once that one was able to take care of itself, it was he and the trained child identify the next child, and they bring another child in, and they identify the next child. So we identified there being 15 of them, I believe, total.
That is correct.
He's going from basically like smallest and most bullied to the ones that could potentially hang on a little bit longer.
Okay. But so what does that mean next? What is the next step in that process? Continuing their training?
Continuing their training, letting them know that should anything befall the orphanage or the city, or something were to happen where they would become abused to the point where they couldn't defend themselves, he is going to tell them about the barge. And he's going to tell them that it will be in Crow's Foot very soon.
Okay. What action backs that up?
I think the last time we did it, it was Prowl, because it was training.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. You want to continue with Prowl?
Yep. I think eventually, though, it's going to have to switch over to like a
it's only a 4-segment clock. So what is if there's an ultimate conclusion to this, maybe since it's a 4-segment clock, maybe what you want to do is you want to jump to the conclusion, because it's more than likely that you're gonna complete it this time, unless you roll a 1 or a 3. Because I know that you've got a 3 in prowess or a 4.
Yeah, I've got 3 right now.
Right. So you've got 3 right now. It's more than likely that you're at least going to get 2 segments out of this, given the way that the chances of success happen through percentages. So,
okay.
What is that next step?
This would be him. Let's say that it was he ultimately trained the weakest 5. How's that?
Okay.
With 1/3 of them.
All right.
He would train them in knowing the rules of being part of all of this. And the first rule would be stay silent, stay safe. And the second one would be see a sister, save a sister. And then whenever he has them on the roof and they are ready to defend each other and themselves, he would end their little meeting, this one that kind of promoted them or got us to the next level, by having them all chant the following. And so before, as it is today, all shall tremble at the gods at play.
Okay. And that will have some ultimate spectral experience involved.
Those 5 will go to the next phase, which would be like acolytes for a better.
Okay, then roll your attune. Then that makes a lot more sense in this particular case.
Okay,
And that you have 3 as well, so it works out either way. Like I said, I knew you were going to complete it just based on the way that the percentages were going to work. Okay, so take us to the conclusion and what that actually means.
Okay, so as he is on the roof of the Strathmill house with the 5 that he has trained, he will turn to them and he will say,
The others, you are in a position to protect them now. Do so. Stay silent. Stay safe. See a sister. Save a sister. If the city turns sideways, if this place becomes too much for the 5 of you, leave. Seek me out. I have told you of my barge. Find it. You will be the only ones allowed to enter. The goodbyes between us are growing few.
Okay. So narratively, that's done. Mechanically, what does that mean next? Do you have a plan for that?
Yeah, mechanically, they're going to become my flock, which will be like my rook network.
Okay. All right. And with that, that's your 5th downtime action. Do you want to do a 6th?
I'm done.
All right, Nix, you're up.
All right, cool. So Nix is going to heal, and since we don't have a physiker, I believe, Johnny, you have to roll for how much I heal.
I would assume that given the circumstances at this point, you would be able to find one relatively easily.
I have one.
You have one? What's the quality of the physiker?
Sawtooth Physiker. His name's Sawtooth, but yeah, he was the guy that went and patched me all up.
Oh, okay. So Johnny, what is his quality that determines what I roll?
Just go ahead and roll your tier at this point.
Okay. Numbers. Okay, so healing dice 3. I super heal.
Yeah, you overheal.
Yep. So I no longer have my gunshot is gone.
Somebody put you in a boss fight.
Yep. I am good to go now. So then my next thing is gonna be kinda neat. So Nix has some time off. Given the things that happened Saturday happened, in some indiscriminate timeline. We're saying that whatever time I'm training right now is after that timeline.
I would suggest that, yeah, after that, but you healed your gunshot before that. So let's just say that.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
If I'd known that, I thought that was okay. Never mind.
What was? We'll come back to you. Okay, we'll come back if you want to make a change or something. If anything, we'll come back. Okay, so go ahead. What's your 2nd downtime action?
So Nix is off alone doing Nix things by himself. Let's say in Eden.
Gross.
It'd be in Eden because why not? I'm going to train 3 times. I'm going to train in Resolve, I believe. And when doing so, he takes his normal stance with the knife or the dagger, and as a blunt instrument cutting into the fabric of ghostly reality, he shears a hole into the ghost field and steps in to better learn to attune. And as he attunes and kind of steps through the field and sees this, thinly veiled ghostly armada around him with people that look almost like they're foggy and are losing focus as their siren song begins to wane. One of the ghostly visages stands much more sharply and doesn't match the visage of any of the rest of them, as the ghostly spectral form of Hocus stands before him, arms crossed, disapproving that he just ripped into the ghost field again, and then silently begins showing Nix how to better attune to the ghost field. Yeah. So that happens.
And that happens the first time you do it?
That happens all 3 times. He's going to be spending... it seems though... So when we left Hocus, he was unconscious, And what happened in the background is that Hocus, the power of the ritual that Hocus performed and the blunt way that Nyx helped him end the ritual sort of severed his mortal connection to his body. And so now he needs assistance leading home back to his body. So he's going to show Nyx how to best attune, and Nyx is going to help him, using that attunement, get back to his corporeal form.
Okay, so here's the problem with that, right? You've got 6 pips that you have to get through. You have the crew upgrade for that, for Resolve?
What? Yes.
Okay, you do. All right, so okay. I just want to make sure that mechanically that's going to work out, because otherwise it presents a really difficult situation for resolving before tomorrow night. I just want to make sure that that's very clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's basically how it goes. He trains with him for hours or however time moves between normal reality and the ghost field. It is spent. Nyx is in that training with Hocus, with a silent, near motionless Hocus, as he feels how to meander through the ghost field more effectively and doesn't have to rip through it with his knife.
Okay, so 2 things are going to change for you in this particular case. First is, I need you to describe to us the next time that you enter the ghost field, what that new experience is like.
Mm-hmm.
Second, regardless of the change in that, there is still a tear that follows you.
Mm-hmm.
You are going to have to address that in some way, and it may require meeting up with Hocus again eventually after you lead him back to his body. Maybe it's something that Steam or OC can help you with at this point, but you will have to deal with that eventually.
Okay.
It will not continue to grow in the same, in the way of you tearing it, right? It will just be there. It will not be a situation like in Stranger Things where the damn thing just keeps growing and growing and growing out of control, right? It is something that is now a fixed element in your life and is always there in the background for you. You will now be able to see it based on Hocus's training, but it is something that you will have to eventually address, or there will be some consequence.
Okay.
Good. All right.
So that's 4 of my so many downtime actions. The remaining 2 for me will be used once I have learned how to attune and I've spent this time with Hocus in the ghost field. I would use this opportunity to work on the Codex Noctum and Codex Diabla? Yeah. So I'm going to attune to both of those and try to muscle through more of this book and understanding it and work on that clock, and those 2 clocks. Does that work?
Okay. Yes, that totally works. First things first. Which one are you going to do?
We'll go with the Diablo first.
Okay. So where did we leave off with you? I don't remember the position that we left off in respect to
what I knew.
Yeah.
Okay, so I found out that the Codex Diablo, the mundane, is texts and charts and diagrams related to devils and demons, but in the ghost field, it's essentially a journal of a demon chronicling the events prior to the cataclysm. Right. That's for the Diablo. So I'm going to tune to that and sort of muscle back through that.
Okay.
So no position, no effect, no bonus dice. Kapow! So 4.
So that's another 2.
Okay.
All right.
And then the next one I'm going to work on is the Noctum.
Okay. So let's get through the Diablo first, right? So you discovered that it was a journal from a demon with information dating back prior to the cataclysm.
Yes.
As you begin to kind of slip in and read the story, as you begin to understand the script, and it becomes to come in focus and make more sense, in your research, what you come to find is that the demon that wrote this was not a demon when the cataclysm happened. They survived the events as something else. And it's a weird scripted word that you can't seem to decipher. But post that, there was something done to them that changed them into whatever this current hell, that as they describe it. and you can see that the circumstances of their writing, there are little bits of corrections and little bits of notes, and you realize that it's all in the same script, as little bits and pieces are annotated to explain more context in the situation. And you find that odd at first, but you realize that the annotations are intended for a very particular audience, somebody who is not a demon. And so the demon was not from Doskvol or from the region, Akaros. They were actually from the Skovland region prior to the Cataclysm. And that's all you get from that.
Okay. So you said the person was Skovland?
Was from the region that would be known as, based on the description and everything else, essentially what the Skovlands, where the Skovland land would be essentially at that point. Because the Cataclysm shattered the world and created the Shattered Islands.
Right. Okay, cool. So yeah, essentially he's going to do the same exact thing for the Codex Noctum as well. So let's go ahead and attune real quick. Threes.
That is another 1 on that one. So where did we leave off with the Noctum?
So the Noctum, the mundane writing, documents life and the naturally occurring species and plants that no longer exist. In the Ghost Field, it documents death, ghosts, and the mythology of the afterlife, and includes a pre-cataclysm legend of the Green Fields.
So the pre-cataclysm legend of the Green Fields was a shared... a shared vision, although it was interpreted differently by different cultures. You are aware of that there is a previous culture to what was actually, what is actually now in the cataclysmic or the post-cataclysmic land of Eruvia. There is some allusion to that as well from the text of the Codex Diabla.
Okay.
The reference to the green field represents what would be the equivalent of heaven, which would be an alien concept to anybody. But when it's described inside of the Codex Noctum, it talks about the journey that the soul would take once leaving the body, and how there would be a test, and from that test as to whether they would be allowed to enter the green fields. That doorway and those tests no longer happen as a part of the consequence of the cataclysm, and that is indicated in the text as you dig farther and farther into that legend. Post that, you start to get a breakdown of the different types of creatures, spectral and otherwise, that have appeared since the cataclysm as a cause of all of this arcane energy just getting focused into essentially what is being described as necromancy.
Okay, say that last part again. That you lost me on that last bit. It shows a list of creatures that now exist.
It starts to diagram or document it's not a pantheon, and it's not necessarily a zoology of, but it's like a listing. A what?
Like a bestiary?
To some degree, it's just it's not as. A bestiary tends to imply that there is a large amount of creatures. These are more that there are just types of creatures.
Okay.
And as it goes through it talks about the effects that it talks about the transformation of certain types of creatures into these current incarnations as they relate to the transformation of arcane energy as it focuses into the area of essentially necromancy.
Okay.
And necromancy would not necessarily be a word that you would know by sight, but you would understand the implication of it.
Okay.
because what everybody would know as necromancy, or it would be the occult or spectral, right? In the same way that alchemy is a very big thing, but it would be known by a different name prior to the cataclysm.
Okay, cool. And that ends my downtime.
Sweet. All right, guys. So before we get started, a couple things are going to happen. Because the events of the finale was supposed to happen tonight, there was going to be the election and everything else. Things are going to slow down a little bit, so I'm going to insert a couple more details into the story. The Rook Network comes back first, confirming what Reymond found out while he was pressing hand to flesh and being a man among the people. The martial law and complete lockdown. So martial law will be ending when the Lightning Tower opens. You all know that the complete lockdown has now ended on Crow's Foot specifically. That circumstance occurred sometime in the last day and wasn't announced. People were just allowed to just kind of move into it. There may be an official announcement later, but the general sentiment is that it was done just prior to the election of aldermen in Crow's Foot, so that people could actually go out and vote, and then subsequently celebrate, or have libations or whatever around, the election of the new alderman. On top of that, how much do I want to say about this? There appears to be a flurry of activity again among the noble houses as couriers are beginning to pass notes, and essentially there's going to be a lot of traffic going between the different noble houses again, not unlike the time previously when you saw this and then it all of a sudden stopped. Something new has sparked a bunch of communication, and it appears that there is a meeting that's going to happen just prior to the election. And that's where we find you guys.
Did it say who's meeting? Just that there are meetings.
There is going to be a meeting of the heads of the noble families.
Okay.
And I didn't get an invitation. How rude.
You didn't get an invitation because you were the only individual and also running for Crow's Foot. Not all houses got invitations. That gets indicated. Only the major names. Bowmore, Rowan, Hendring.
So the 6,
basically? Essentially the 6, although there's something significant about that particular amount of communication happening in public.
So we don't really have free play right now because we have these people with us.
You do, because you can just describe to me where they end up or what happens to them, and then we can talk about that and how it plays into whatever you decide to do next.
Do we want to go into the... Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, it really is just a matter of, we're going to hand wave whatever happens to them, wherever you put them, what goes on with that, whether it ends up with Nyx putting the crows off to the side until he goes and visits the crows, or, Steam kind of just leading them off and saying, stay here until this situation. We're just going to hand wave the circumstance of that, and they're going to be with you when you need them, kind of thing.
Okay. Do you guys want to go straight into the 2 scores that we're going to do simultaneously?
Sure.
Because I'm assuming there's scores, unless I'd like to offer that and this just is up to you, Johnny, obviously. We're going to go back and meet the general with the heads. And it's going to be Mr. Bowerstone and I. And we're going to drop them off, have a conversation, and leave. Because it's pretty much already been established what we want. And all we want to say is we have someone that we would like to put in power for right now and see how he does as the leader of the Red Sashes. He's already a Red Sash, but we'd like to promote him because we trust him, we know him, and he's clean, pretty much. As clean as you can be for a Red Sash.
Okay.
So we want to kind of have that conversation with him. Is that a score, or did we already do the score by getting what he wanted? Is this just a conversation after the fact?
Well, so you cemented the deal with the heads, right? You've done exactly what you wanted with him, and he told you what he would give you. He would give you the support of the sashes, and he would introduce you to the person that you need to speak to with the crows. Selling him on leadership, yeah, that's a score, because that's different from the deal that you started with, right? So that's definitely a score.
Yeah, we're gonna offer it. If he just says no, then we still have the deal with him. But we would like to offer up an alternative.
Right, but it sounds like a lot of the plans that you guys have moving forward kind of hinge on this being a success, right? So because it's a success and because the outcome is uncertain, it's definitely going to be a score.
Okay. We'll do that, and then are you guys gonna do the other thing while we're?
Of course.
Yep.
You want to tell him?
Yeah, we're going to have a meeting with whoever's left at the Crows.
So let me ask you this question. Are you waiting to do that? I mean, OC described this as simultaneous. Are you waiting to do that until after the circumstances of delivering on the deal with the Consulate General? Because he clearly gave you an indication, I will essentially give you the person to talk to in the Crows. Or are you just going to, go boldly and just, ignore that situation?
I think Nyx would leave that to OC since he already got kicked out of the Eruvians meetings.
Right, but the question is, does it happen simultaneously or is it a sequential thing? Because then those are two linked scores, right?
Yeah, I think Nyx would point that out to OC because I do remember that happening.
We could do 2 linked scores and everyone but you go, and you could just babysit the Crows.
Why would I need to babysit them?
We don't want them to go back before we can go, right? We don't want to send them back and let them have time to prepare thinking that there's someone coming to talk to them.
I don't think we should send them back until after we've had this discussion.
Yeah.
That's what yep. Yeah. So I think that you babysit them since you're not allowed to go with us. Someone has to watch them.
Oh, we've got rooks that can do that, can't we? I mean, there's 6 guys. We can...
Yeah.
11.
Well, no.
What are we doing with the red sashes? I'm not bringing them to this meeting.
Why not?
Yeah. Do you want? Okay.
Or if
because he doesn't want to be seen with. Does he want to be seen with red sashes?
If we narratively need another place for him to go, Steam will take him to the academy, and
instill the fear of God.
Yes.
Literally.
Walk in and lead them in, and drop them off while everybody's training.
Okay. Then yeah, I'd like to do the score with. I'd like to do the score, I guess, with just Bowerstone then, if you're doing that.
Okay, so is there any type of information gathering or investigation you want to do prior to this situation? Or prior to entering the score?
I would reach out to his contact. I would have Nyx reach out to his contact just to make sure that he knows what we're doing. That we're at least going to attempt to do this, because he might want to know first, right, Nyx?
Oh, yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah. Hey, you might be the leader if this goes right, just so you know.
Yeah.
It's good. The person we're going to put in place is his contact.
Yeah.
In his cohort.
So Nyx would reach out to Needle.
Okay, and what do you specifically do you want to do with that?
Nothing mechanically, just essentially he's going to tell him that we have something going on, and that it might involve him, and that he may step up and take Mylira's place.
Yeah. Nailed it.
Okay.
That we're going to put his name forth to take Mylira's place.
As an option.
Okay.
And she thinks that it's going to go a little bit better than, just offering up a person, because she brought the head of a traitor. Because that's frowned upon in the sashes. The lieutenant who did that.
Okay. So if it's going to be just OC and Reymond, this is going to be a social situation, and you already have your point of contact or your social engagement or a social score. You already have your point of contact. I guess let's quickly talk about loadout. Besides the heads, I assume the Mylira's sword, and your own, and you loaned him, or you handed him your own sword at that point last week. What else are you bringing?
I have throwing knives, an unusual weapon, which is my sword, and trance powder.
Okay.
For me, all I'm bringing is throwing knives, just for me in the grey suit.
Okay. All right. So, as with every score, we start off with the engagement roll. 1 die for sure luck. What's in your favor here, guys?
We already have the deal going with him. We already have the connection, the respect, all that good stuff from having good vibes with him, other than the slight side thing that happened. We are bringing him exactly what he asked for and a bonus gift. And we did it pretty quietly, so it won't get back to him. And what I mean quietly, I mean no one knows that it's specifically. We didn't kill him in the middle of the street like an asshole. We planned a little bit. We did it in a good time, and we did it in a way that we're now dealing with both groups who saw everything happen.
Okay, so that sounds like it's 3 so far,
yeah.
Right? So one is the sheer luck. 2 is the fact that it's a pre-existing deal and that you're in a good position to walk in the door. 3, there's no general tie to him at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else playing in your favor?
I mean, I don't know if my political standpoint helps again.
This meeting is specifically about the deal and then asking about the red sashes. So I'm not sure politics comes into play. Unless you can make an argument for it, I don't think it makes sense.
The whole his word is his law. I don't know what his reputation around the street is, but what he says he's never gone back on.
But he's been a politician and he hasn't committed to anything.
Yeah, I would say it's just 3.
How about this, Johnny? If we're talking about, this is like an underworld. I don't know. He's a politician and he's in the light of day, so to speak. But if it's an underworld kind of seeing and kind of proving ourselves to them, could Steam deliver the Eruvians to the Sash Academy maybe 3 hours before the meeting of OC and Bowerstone? And just enough time for the boogeyman stories to start matriculating to the Eruvian general?
Like, we're going to keep them in line. Look what we did. And it barely took any effort. And I'm showing up looking fantastic. I didn't even get a scratch.
Well, hold on. So what you're asking for essentially the rumor or the reputation that you're not releasing them back into the wild, right?
I was going to take him to the Sash Academy, yeah. But you do that just a couple hours beforehand, and then that way the rumor spreads. Is that what you're saying? Right, because he's not. To my understanding, he's in the Eruvian consulate. He's not in the Sash Academy. So it would be.
It's the Eruvian Sword Academy. It's not the Red Sashes. It's the headquarters. Yeah, but semantics are important here in this case.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Yeah, no, but that's what I was trying to do, Johnny. Get there in just enough time to this guy's in touch with everything that's Red Sash oriented. He's their de facto leader right now. He's going to hear all the scuttlebutt, and if they bring him in and they say, "Holy shit, these 2 people came in and without getting touched, took the heads off of these people. We think he's, Père Noel or whoever, they want to say."
Maybe
would that help?
Maybe from a standpoint of here are your men back. We didn't touch them, but there was a traitor in your midst, and learn your lesson and try to law and order within the Sashes type thing. Look how easily we can get a handle on your men who are obviously doing shit that you don't know about.
Sure. So I think that would come into play. I don't think doing it 3 hours beforehand would be enough time for that to happen. But if it was a day, I think that makes sense, right? There's enough time for rumor to spread, and the whole.
Okay, whatever time frame.
Yeah, I'm just commenting on the way you described it, because it's the kind of thing where reputation and rumor and hearsay, the boogeyman has appeared, or the boogeyman, of legend.
Why don't you do that and then come with us?
Yeah. That might work into your favor.
Steam, why don't you do that and then come with us as a flashback or whatever in the free play?
Yeah, that'll work. Whatever you guys need me to do, sure, that's fine.
Because if we have to wait for him anyway to go to the next thing, if we're all going to go together to the Crows, it makes more sense, right?
I agree.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That's up to you.
Okay, so that's 4. That's 4 in your favor at this point. Is there anything else that goes into your favor, guys? All right.
No.
All right, Mike, did you have anything that you wanted to add? Okay. Now, negatives. And I'm going to ask this question before I give you a negative. Where are you meeting this Eruvian consulate general?
Begler's place, wasn't it? Where we met him before.
Yeah, OC is not going in there with 2 heads. So she would ask to meet him on neutral ground.
She knew where I was going with that.
Yeah, no, we were going to set the stage once we started to plan the planning stage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, she's not going into the consulate with these heads.
Okay,
she
did you
would
not get
leave
the
the
platter?
heads. She would leave these heads at an unknown, a place that they had discussed, and then go meet him and say, "You got your present. So, what's up?"
Well, I'm sure depositing the sashes at the Eruvian Sword Academy would be the perfect way to establish hey, we need to meet or meet us here. They know it somehow that message gets passed up the chain.
Steve just has a sack like Santa Claus and just comes in with all these sashes, and he's just like, "Merry Christmas," and just leaves.
Right.
Here are your heads. Vote for
So,
Bowerstone.
so instead of red and white, it's black and red as your hat. Okay, all right, great.
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay, so where are you meeting then? This is important to the pool. Or like just a general idea. I don't need a very specific place. Would it be at the respite, or would it be someplace neutral?
It would be
I don't know,
somewhere
like
neutral,
the
probably.
like the leaky bucket. Sorry, I just had to ask that one. No, so it would be someplace that
What do you think,
basically not.
Steve?
Oh, that would be badass. I'm totally
bucket.
down for walking in
The bucket.
Right. Fuck all y'all. Right.
Yeah, no, not Steam. Yep.
Nix, are you sure you don't want to be there now, man?
No, he doesn't. Nope, he's not allowed. OC's not letting him.
We could
Fair
knock them
deal.
all off the list. Walked into the Ruvian Sword Academy, walked out alive, walked into the bucket.
All right.
No.
So it's gonna be at the bucket. So
No.
while it's ballsy as fuck, I'm not gonna pull it away from your 4 at this point. Can anybody think of any other negatives before I suggest one more?
The fact that we didn't know why he wanted him dead, but I don't know if that's a factor because it doesn't come back to us at the current moment in time. We're not going to go in there.
That was actually my negative, is that you didn't actually know what the circumstances of him wanting Gull's head.
I mean, does it affect us? Because I think we were going to kill him anyway.
Well, you were going to kill him anyways, but a lot of what you're hinging is on the deal that this is actually a professional or you didn't clarify whether this was a vendetta, a personal thing, or something that that actually fits in with the politics of the Sashes and the Eruvians in Doskvol. So,
Well, I figure he'll say that if we say, "Hey, we're meeting at the leaky bucket," and he says, "Are you fucking crazy?" then that will probably clear up that whole avenue. But at the same time, he could say, "Hey, while we're here at the leaky bucket, here's my buddy George, who I told you I'd introduce you to."
Is there a George? Can we add him?
Yeah, I think we do it at the leaky bucket, and
his name is not George, by the way.
If we have
Are you
4,
sure?
I think taking one
I'm
away
gonna call
makes
him
sense
George.
for that.
What was that,
The
Steve? George?
I'm just going to call him George from now on.
Love it.
It doesn't matter.
Let's go find George at the leaky bucket.
I think it makes sense to take one away. I think 3 makes sense
Okay.
because
All right.
we don't know why. So,
Okay. So I ultimately, when we're doing negatives, I think it's important for you guys to hear my negatives, but then ultimately make the decision. If you guys think it makes sense, great. So let's call it 3. And with that, we're going to have OC roll it.
What am I rolling?
So roll a fortune roll on your character sheet
And then 3.
and drop in 3. And let's see what that actually means. And give us a good message. Not huzzah.
Hey,
Not
that was a one-time
huzzah.
use. I haven't used it more than once. Leave me alone.
Not huzzah.
That's one hell of a message being typed.
All right.
Lose
So-
a die.
I would like OC, Reymond, and Steam to set the scene for us when they walk in the leaky bucket. What's going on?
I feel like we go a little bit early and have a drink, kind of like celebration, or like we haven't really hung out or unwound for a while. Maybe OC's having a drink. She's super casual.
I want to see Steam relax a little bit.
You're not going to see that in the leaky bucket.
You're definitely not going to see that in the leaky bucket.
Steam,
Yeah.
have a drink on me, mate.
No, thank you, Alderman.
Not even
No, thank you, Alderman.
water?
Okay, guys, I actually would like you guys to set the scene. What's going on inside of
I think
the
what we're
leaky
aiming
bucket?
for is
Because,
casual.
well, Goal is dead. It's been a day.
He's dead.
He's not returned. So what does it look like inside of the leaky bucket?
There's probably rumors and people talking, but whoever would normally take over the leaky bucket is probably people are on edge a little bit, I would assume. And
Okay.
people are looking at everyone a little shifty, and OC would go in like a nice outfit, just like, she's going in with the girls to have a drink because she has contacts. She has people hanging out everywhere in Crowsfoot, pretty much. So she'd probably just like stop in, say hi. It would probably be a little bit quieter than it usually is.
Okay.
Anything to add, guys?
There's probably a mop and bucket leaning on the door to the roof.
We didn't kill him here. Steam walks in with a bloody bag.
You walk in with the bloody bag.
Yeah, like a burlap sack that has blood stains on the inside of it. And when he walks in, he looks
With no
around.
heads, though.
You don't know what's in the bag. There's
Oh, cranberry squashed.
and as he walks in, he says,
I wonder where the best seat on the house is.
he pulls up the bag and listens.
Ah, right here then.
He goes over and sits down, puts the bag down.
Gonna move one store away from Steam.
She's gonna move closer.
All eyes are on you as the three of you enter the leaky bucket. The serving woman walks up with a little bit of hesitation at first. You see a couple of your contacts just kind of sitting around. When you see them hesitate to throw you an immediate greeting, that sets you on edge a little bit. Go ahead.
OC will just look to them like,
So the serving woman walks up, begins to ask for your order. Again, a little hesitant. She takes it, walks away. There was quite a large gentleman working behind the bar, 6'6", a barrel of a guy, very girth, huge, just, massive, massive hands, massive arms. And there are a couple of other ruffian-looking types sitting at the bar, talking with him as he is tending and serving drinks. For the most part, the bucket is very busy. It is one of the first nights since the lifting of the complete lockdown. So they have a full room. But when you walk in, you are not their usual patrons, and so it is eye-catching that all three of you walk in as you sit down. As you're sitting there, you don't see any Arubians in the place. You don't see any sashes whatsoever. However, when two red sashes, plainly wearing their sashes, come through the door, they are not stopped. You see a lot of grumbling that happens when those two sashes come in, but they are not stopped. They go to the bar. The big man behind the bar begrudgingly gives them drinks and immediately begins to ignore them.
On me.
Moving through the next couple of minutes, you see one or two other significant things happen. Two more Ruvians walk in, go to sit at a corner table. Now, these aren't sashes. These are Ruvians. They're clearly wearing military garb from the Aruvian consulate. So they are the soldiers from the Aruvian consulate. They sit at a corner table off to the side towards where the back rooms are. At another point, a young woman walks through the door, kind of passes by at first, looks over at Steam, holds up her stump, and goes like this and smiles at him and continues to the bar. And it is at that moment when Steam nods to her that there is a hushed silence, because you were all focusing on the fact that this crazy 15-year-old crazy assassin type chick just walked by and acknowledges Steam. And when you turn around, you look, the consulate general is walking through with 4 other soldiers escorting him. And when he sees you, he immediately begins to walk forward, and the 4 soldiers kind of spread out into the room. Everything about these 4 strike you as, these are people that you don't screw around with. These are elites. These are, looking at their swords, OC, you see that they are all masters. So,
all right, Reymond's going to stand up. Good to see you. Shall we have a round of drinks first?
he looks at you with a bit of confusion at first, and then he just ignores you and begins to look at OC and says, "Your puppet's getting a little out of sorts here."
He's just excited
Excuse
that the
me?
lockdown is. He's just excited that the lockdown is over. People can go about their business, having drinks, enjoying themselves.
Drinks arrive. A fine bottle is placed on the table with a series of glasses. "Oh, good." He looks up at the serving woman. "I'm glad to see that you got my order prior to me actually arriving here. That's great." He sits down, begins to pour drinks, puts one in front of OC, then one in front of Reymond, then another in front of Steam, and begins to hand one back to one of the soldiers that came with him, one of the masters who is standing behind him.
Reymond is going to sit down. He's going to take his glass and he's going to offer it to him in a cheers motion. "My name is Reymond. I'm not a puppet."
He turns to OC and says, and offers her an Eruvian toast, something that only Hocus would actually be able to tell us what it actually is. But he offers a toast. He clinks with her glass first, then Reymond's, and even though Steam may not be drinking, he would be expected to toast this momentous occasion.
OC is going to say, "Not slipping anything in our drinks, are you? It'd be a shame for this party to end so soon."
And he drinks from it heartily.
She'll take it, and she'll take Reymond's. He's a bit of a lush.
Ooh.
It's not my kind of drink anyway.
You know, for a puppet, you really do allow her to mommy you.
So about our arrangement.
I was surprised to see that you wanted to meet here.
It's a fine establishment.
Currently up for sale, as I would understand.
Odd.
This is your party, as they say.
Why all of the people? Why the guards?
You do realize that this is a crow's establishment, don't you?
Oh, I understand. They've been very hospitable, as you can see.
Mm-hmm. And I have my relationships, but I still have to make sure that as the Eruvian Consulate General that I am safe. And at that, the Eruvian Master standing behind him nods to you in one of those acknowledgments of a master circumstance.
She'll nod back.
And he says, before we conclude this, I believe this is yours. You did leave this with me prior, and I figured that since I'm seeing you again, thank you. And he hands you back your sword.
She'll take it and put it on the table and say thank you.
Okay. And he looks at you expectantly.
I believe this concludes our agreement.
It does. He looks around. I see no proof of circumstance.
Steam lifts the bag.
And it's a bag that looks to have a little bit of blood on it.
He dumps out both heads onto the table.
The moment that you do that, there is shock and surprise that comes from the entire establishment. At first, the three thugs that are sitting in front of the bar next to the quite large gentleman begin to make a move and grab their blades. But you see that he says something to them, forcing them to pause. There are various other individuals who are starting to grab for their blades, but at this significant circumstance where this large gentleman forces those three to sheathe their blades and sit down with another drink, the surprise and sort of shock begins to die down as there are hushed whispers. And he looks at the table and he sees the two heads and he picks up the head of the Eruvian lieutenant. That's a sad circumstance. He's a distant cousin.
Tragic.
What happened? And he holds it up in front of you.
He was making side deals with Gull in secret.
That is unfortunate.
We want people on our side, and yours, who respect the rules, as we do.
And he kind of he looks at the face, and he puts it back down. That's really unfortunate. And he grabs with his other hand and picks up Gull's face. And he stands up and he kind of looks it up high. And he raises his voice and he says, "Did he put up a fight?"
Had he not been up against us, maybe he could have.
Turns the head again.
He begged. And he gave us some very good information. Nothing you need to know. Personal things.
Begging is a lie. He didn't actually beg. Right?
He begged us to take the thing off. On his knees.
He did not beg. This is meta knowledge. He did not beg.
He demanded we take but
There's
she
a
is saying
difference. He
she
did
is
not
using
beg.
the word beg.
No, I don't think he did. I'll trust that you don't lie to me again, though. And he places the head back on. And he puts his hand on top of the head and says, "Rest easy, sister." And for just a second, he closes his eyes. And he sits back down, pours himself another drink, and makes a wave as if for more. He heaves a deep sigh of relief as he takes that drink and up steps the quite large 6'6", rotund, girthy gentleman. And as that shadow kind of just plays across him as he's just sitting there, he says, "Well, Gillis, these are my friends. They have come to talk to you about an arrangement. I would suggest you listen to them. He looks back to OC, then to Reymond, then to Steam. And he says, I respect that you did not bring that other one. His disrespect got my blood up. But I appreciate you honoring my request.
Of course.
This is one half of the deal. Gillis will take care of you. The other half of the deal is that you have the support of the Sashes.
May I ask?
Now, oh, okay. What might you be asking, young lady?
I'm curious who you're going to put in charge. My concern is that it would be a lieutenant, such as this one, no offense intended, that is not as trustworthy as we need for our purpose, for the unity.
No, we will not be making mistakes there again. It is my responsibility, and I answer to a higher authority. Don't worry, rest assured, I will be taking care of it.
If you could please let us know when you pick someone, just so we know who to speak to. I would appreciate it. And I know that some of the men are taking it upon themselves to make deals such as these.
It was not unexpected. We did not think it would happen so quickly. My suspicion is that the goal situation with this particular one shakes his head at the head of the lieutenant, that this one had a longer standing deal than the circumstances that precipitated it, which would be the school. I'm curious. Your interest in our leadership. It's an internal matter, but I'm curious. I trust your judgment. Who do you think should be in charge?
Would I know any of the lieutenants? Would I know if any of them are trustworthy? Would I know if any of them didn't agree, maybe, with my Lyra?
That's... So, okay, stepping out of the scene for a second, talking about the meta aspect of this. I don't know how much exposure OC would have to the current hierarchy of the Red Sashes.
No.
Especially given all of the murder that's gone on. I mean, there was the significant event where with the Leviathan parts shipment, and then the subsequent, explosion at there was the lieutenants that actually showed up to the warehouse bombing, and then there was the events of the Irivian school essentially massacre, right? Because you basically massacred all of the leadership there. So there's been a lot of churn for them. Who would you know at any way, shape, or form?
No, I was just wondering if there were if I would know. If that's the case, if that's how it would, given everything. I had a really fucked up thought in my head, and I'm not going to say it.
Well, remember, this is still meta, so...
I know, I'm not. She would say to him...
Well, wait, I have one more question from a meta perspective. Would she know about and would be willing to suggest Needle?
She's not going to do that because they're being sketchy. He didn't give us the full... she's not... Meta, okay. She's not doing that anymore. She would have used her judgment and not done that now that they're being shady with their information.
Okay.
And why he wanted it and, all that. She would say, what my Lyra did was wrong. The ghost contract that she made for all of these people was wrong. I want you to choose someone who would have gone against her had they had the option. And someone who we can trust, and someone who will sign that contract in your absence.
You're referring to the contract that Nyx presented?
Yep.
Okay.
Why, Nix, can you say something? Because your face is real weird right now, and I don't like it. Someone screenshot it, please.
I didn't expect you to say that.
Yeah.
That was it.
That was uneventful.
That was a face of shock. That was oh no, you did the thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
She said, I respect that you don't want to do that. Understandable. I wouldn't do it either. But I want someone who will. They report to you, but everything in the contract is pretty much what we agreed on anyway. He just doesn't want to do it. So that's what she would say to him. She would look to Steam and say, you can put the heads away now.
Leave them.
Okay.
Given this opportunity, Steam will look at the general briefly and switch his stare between, what's his name, Gillis, sorry, whatever. Gillis and the general. And as he would pass his gaze back and forth between them, he'll say,
The old man fared as well as an old man could be expected to. Had he been younger and in his prime, I dare say we would have had a fight. Unfortunately, he was retired and should have stayed so. Drink more to your friend, at least his memory.
Gillis looks at you, and for the first time you get a sense of his actual age. He's much younger than his girthy nature suggests. And you see a bit of a softness to the way that he looks at you when you say this. But it is the general who looks back at you with hard eyes and says, age increases experience. Experience increases understanding. Never doubt that what you did removed his experience from our lives. I may not have had any love for this particular individual, but I did respect what he was able to accomplish.
A side
Now,
effect
Gillis.
of experience.
I'm sorry, what?
A side effect of experience is respect.
Now, Gillis, please tell these lovely folks, these lovely individuals, what it is that you can do for them. And so with that, for the first time, Gillis leans down or kneels down because he cannot actually fit on any one of the chairs. And he says, you will come to the nest in the next day. I will escort you in from the outside. Bring only those you deem necessary for the conversation. And his voice is kind of deep, and it's very, there's a twinge of still adolescence in there. But you can see from the calluses on his hands and from the muscles that ripple in his arms as he's leaning down with a little bit of a strain, and he's kind of holding on to the table as he's, kind of balancing himself, that he has hard-won experience in fights. And he ends this with, blood will likely be spilled.
OC will look to him. We do have a handful of your men unharmed, but they're just being watched until we can have a discussion. Would you like us to bring them then?
Served gold, did they?
Yes.
It's likely that they're lost already.
We figured that was not our decision to make. The leader should make that decision.
Well, given the circumstances, there is no leader, and there's going to be a fight for it.
There may not be, but we will see.
The less that I have to worry about killing, the better.
That's where we come in. We will help you. We will help sort this out.
As I said, find me at the nest. And he steps up. Now, if you don't mind, I have to get back to drinks.
Thank you, sir.
He nods to the consulate general, and he gives the consulate general a grin. And at that point, you see that he's 17 years old. He's just a child in the world. But as he walks away with a slight limp. And you notice that it comes from his right knee, and that he has already experienced a fair amount of pain. The general looks back at the three of you, and he says, now that that is done, how do we move forward?
She will give him one of her calling cards for the girls.
Okay.
Have one of your men, the man that you choose, bring this card when he is ready to sign. And he will be able to find us. The quicker the better, as we say, with everything that's going on and all the people that are taking it upon themselves.
All right. And he stands, and he says, one last drink to your health.
And yours. And she'll take both hers and Bowerstone's.
You may be a puppet, he leans down to Reymond, but don't let her mother you. And he begins to turn, and the swordsman behind him, the swordmaster, nods to him for a second, and he leans down and whispers something into the general's ear. Yes, you're right. And he turns back to the table. He says, before I leave, consider this not part of our deal, but a personal courtesy. Keel is out for blood. He knows the circumstances of the school massacre. We found his little rat that was feeding him information, but it was too late. While the deal may be done, and while Keel is still questionable with his resources, as he has been suffering because of the Leviathan trade, he still has resources, and he is now a desperate man. Just consider this a warning.
For personal reasons.
It's much appreciated, my friend.
For personal reasons, I will be having a talk with him. No need to worry. Vote Bowerstone. And she'll just laugh a little bit. Because it's out of character for her to be joking.
And he just looks at you as if maybe he had made a mistake, turns, and slowly begins to walk out as the three other swordsmen just step up, three other masters step up to form his
meat shield.
His escort. And they step out, and you hear a goat making weird goat sounds as it begins to clop off, and there's a carriage. And at that point, the two in the corner also peel off and go outside as well. But the two that were standing at the bar are continuing to get drunk.
OC?
Yes, Mr. Bowerstone. Lord Bowerstone.
Please don't do that again.
Every vote counts.
A vote may count by the right person, but I don't want my reputation of this puppet to go around like wildfire. No one's going to have faith in that.
I can't change what people say.
He's the only one that said it, Alderman. He was trying to get a rise out of you.
And it worked.
If anyone else tries that, I don't care who they are. I'm not having any dealings with them.
She's going to put her hand on his shoulder as she steps up across the table to leave. I didn't know what was in that drink. It wasn't for your protection. It was for the good of the group. 2 fighters are better than 1. And she's going to get up and leave.
Steam.
Alderman.
The time is nigh.
It is.
She turns around when you say nigh and looks around.
Johnny, I guess we're getting up to leave.
I'm waiting for you guys to tell me that that's scene, and then we'll call it at the end of the score.
Okay. The only thing
because I figured that there was enough drop there that you guys should be able to go, well, maybe we should, close this up with something.
Okay. As we're leaving the bar,
Mm-hmm.
Steam pauses in the doorway, turns back around, and is the girl in there drinking? The stump girl in there drinking?
She's no longer there.
Okay. He waves.
When she leaves.
Regardless. No, I never saw her leave. I was watching. So she either is in there, snuck out the back, or is walking around like a tough guy. So he just waves with the hand that he cut off.
Behind her, you hear a giggle.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
I have to.
And that's it.
I have to hand it to you. You should have gone. You started still clap while the whole bar is clapping. Yeah, I guess that's it.
So does that complete the first score, or is it connected scores to the next one now?
Well, there are connected scores. However, I just want to make sure that that's seen for you guys. That's all you want to do there.
I would go get a rag and clean up, or point to one of my girls to clean up the blood.
As you attempt to make that happen, Gillis intervenes and says, leave them.
Oh, not the heads. The blood on the floor from the bag.
Leave it.
Okay.
He took whatever the consulate general told him to heart.
Yep.
In respect to leaving it.
Okay.
And so the 2 heads are just there on the table, whether they're dripping blood or not, whether there's any blood on the floor. He's just asked that you leave it.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's it then.
Okay.
For me. That's it for you guys?
OC. You cut more heads off, didn't you?
Oh yeah, you weren't there for that. Did you get lost, Arson?
The alleyway is beautiful at night.
And then we'll probably cut. We'll probably cut to meeting up with a few hours later with Nyx and Giles and all of the crows.
Okay, so the reason that this is a linked set of plans or scores is because it essentially is a setup maneuver for the actual meeting, right? If you guys had done them simultaneously, this wouldn't have had any factor into what actually happens at the Crows meeting. Given everything that has happened, there is not going to be there's not going to be a new engagement roll because you guys had a decent roll to start unless you guys want a new one. You've got a 5. That's a decent roll. Everything that you did in there did not make for a difficult set of circumstances or complicate the situation anymore. It didn't get out of control. So I'm okay with continuing on with the second part of this engagement or the second part of this plan or the second score with the same engagement. The rules are not clear on how this actually, whether you would do it one way or the other, right? It's kind of vague in this respect. So it's entirely up to you guys what you want to do.
I think we continue with it for time reasons, and 5 is a decent score.
All right. I mean, we can do both, and mechanically that makes sense, right? You're treating them as separate scores. I'm just suggesting that for time and discussion of everything else and moving forward, because we're at 2 hours, it just makes sense to kind of move into that. And then at the end of this, you guys will have 4 downtime actions again.
Okay, that works for me.
Everybody's good with that?
Yep.
Okay, so the only question I have for you, out of all of this, what is the plan for the next score?
We're going to establish leadership.
How do you
It's
want
going to
do
be a
that?
social engagement.
Social?
Let's just call
assault?
all of our things social, even if we're going.
I mean, is
Well,
there?
so-
By the way, I would like to go into this with all of the crows' hands tied. 'Cause I don't need them fighting us if there's a thing. Is anyone opposed to that?
They don't want us to bring those crows in.
That's not what he said.
Yes.
Is that what he said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought he said
Yeah.
that might cause more bloodshed.
No, he said those are already they're already lost. If they worked for Go, they're already lost.
Yep.
Yeah, let's go in for a social.
He was basically implying that you should murder them. That was what was being said. Just so you know, that was what his implication was.
Let's put a pin in those guys for later.
How
We
many?
can always do a flashback that we brought them, right? And that they're just sitting outside.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Cool.
All right, so this is a social engagement then. Even though he told you to expect blood.
I think we're joking. I think we know that this is going to be a.
A social assault.
A social. Yeah, I think this is a fight. This is an assault.
Arguably, this could also be deception.
This is a red tie event.
I think given what we know of the crows, and given that we know that they are the heavy-handed ones in Crowsfoot, and that they were until very recently the ward bosses before we dismantled them from the inside. Actually, from the outside, I guess. I think we would go prepared to fight our way to the top. I don't see them being the talkative type as the rest of the people are.
We're going to go in and say 5 words. If they disagree, then it's a fight. So I guess if that's a fight, then we're going to give them the option. But if we know, if we're going in knowing, I guess, yeah, it's a fight.
What are those 5 words?
I'm in charge
You
now,
said
boys.
5. I just want to know what the 5 are.
I'm in charge now, boys.
Shirts getting out of order.
Lord Bowerstone or City Alderman.
All right.
Suck my massive Eruvian.
You're not
So
Peruvian.
the circumstances of the meeting are they're going to be at the nest. The crow's nest is essentially a clock tower standing in the center of in Crowsfoot. If you're treating this like an assault, talk about the point of attack here.
Just so I can set this up for later, when you guys come to get Nyx is handing off a letter drawn on blue paper to someone in the Rook Network. And you just see him hand it off, and then the guy walks away, and then he turns to you guys. And then we arrive.
So if you do that, right then and there, another Rook shows up
Oh.
and hands you a letter.
Oh.
Could I have given one of my girls a letter?
You know what? We need to open up a postal service. I'm just saying.
Maybe
Instead
there's
of
just all this letter exchanging just needs to happen right now.
All right, I'm sending a letter.
It's
to
an
my
Edith
friends.
Wharton novel.
I'm sending a letter to my.
All right, so go ahead.
I'm sending a letter as well, but go ahead.
Okay. So, all of that letter exchanging going on, I'm going to ask that those letters be written, be read, since this is happening.
You go first, Nyx.
Do I
You got the study.
do I have a
So-
new letter?
You do, but Nyx gets to go first with the letter that he's sending.
Okay. So this letter, written on blue paper, if unfolded, reveals the blueprints of a hull. The letter reads, "Dearest Beverly, it has come to my attention that a group of scoundrels have broken into your domicile and disrupted the valuable research you have been working so very hard on. Hello. With your companion Nicholas. As a personal favor to his father, I'm looking for Nicholas, and I have taken the liberty of locating some of the ruffians responsible for the complications in your research. One of whom is proving to be a complicated nuisance. If my assumptions are correct, you may be uniquely positioned to uncover the identity of a man who refers to himself as Mr. Wolf." Then there is a elaborate description of what Mr. Wolf looks like, and it says, "Should you encounter Mr. Wolf, please take precautions and feel free to contact me with any information you may have regarding his identity, as well as the location of Nicholas Pendrin. Astutely yours, N." And then attached is Nyx's calling card that says "Seek the Homeless," and that's it.
And then it's taken off and delivered to the residents of Beverly Chandler.
One Professor Beverly Chandler.
One Professor Beverly Chandler in Charter Hall.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where her residence is. Now, that letter goes off. What about OC's letter?
I'm going to stutter a lot.
Do it.
Sister, I know you are looking for Nye, as am I. The man who calls himself Mr. Wolf is working with a group who I have been informed by Gull may be Nye. This group of individuals were the last people to come across her while in the vessel. Gull is dead, and you know I cannot entertain a lie. I want to say goodbye to her. If you need me, I am always in the house of the gods. Love, your sword sister.
And that is addressed to the Dimmer sisters and sent off.
It says sister specifically, but it has
Right, but
a drawing that what's her name? What's her name?
Rosalind.
Thank you. Would recognize that it's to her.
Right. Okay. Great. So that goes up. So both of those letters go off as you are preparing to leave for the meeting at Crow's the nest in Crowsfoot. A courier arrives, or sorry, not a courier. One of the Rook Networkers arrives, looking a little shaken and a little white, drawn, and hands Nyx a letter, all in white. When he opens it up, it is a single piece of parchment that reads the following. Dearest Nyx, your lack of interest in completing the task I have asked of you is disheartening. Timing is important, and sadly I'm running out of it. Will I be seeing you soon? Or will I be forced to call on you? And at the bottom is the symbol for chaos. What was that, OC? I'm sorry. I didn't quite hear that.
I was too busy laughing at Steam.
I said, fuck that guy, but I was muted.
I said you're fucked, but I was muted.
Exactly. Now, on to Crowsfoot.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Okay.
let's see the wizard.
We all out of letters? Right. We're all good.
Okay. So, point of attack. Remember, this was the question that was on the table when Nyx decided that he wanted to send a letter, and then OC wanted to send a letter, and then there was a letter arriving. So,
Yeah, I mean, I guess the point of attack is the whatever. I guess we don't know.
The guy said to go in the back with him and follow him in, so we're going through the back.
Yeah, we were told to expect combat, so that's the point of attack, is the whatever combat we were expecting.
Now, what he told us is that there would be because of the vacancy in leadership, there would be a fight for the leadership. And since OC was there, was that a lie or was that legit?
that was legit.
Okay. Well, then we're in for a fight when we get up in there.
That's why I asked him if there's any poison in it.
Right.
Okay. So with that in mind, your point of attack is you're going to follow him in, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to change my loadout, please.
Oh, please do. Does it include 2 swords? Yes? Is that it?
No.
I assume you're going to include your sash. Am I wrong?
Well, that's her unusual weapon. So
Of course,
it's
I
a
know,
blade or
but-
2, transpowder, throwing knives, an unusual weapon, and a... Hold on one second. Where is it? Sorry, I can't find it.
No. Sorry, my laptop decided to lose power at the last second. Now I'm like, I've got to go and... Yeah, okay. Anyways.
Iron blades in the dark.
That's it. That's it. Nope.
That's it? Okay, great. So, when you arrive You arrive at the agreed upon time. You see that Gillis is surrounded by the three individuals who were sitting at the bar with him. And at first, they get upset, visibly upset, at seeing the four of you show up. Nix wasn't there, so they don't recognize him in this circumstance. But the three of you, they're visibly just taken aback by it. But it is at this moment that Gillis pushes them off to the side, has some hushed words with them, and they fall in line. He steps up to you and says, I must apologize for that. It takes a little bit of coaxing to get the right results from these three. They're not all quite there in the head. Now, what we're walking into is a rite of passage. When the bomb blew up in that warehouse, the crows didn't know what to do. And typically there is a fight and a rite of passage where those who present themselves as leader step up. And ultimately somebody wins. And the rest are left to the canals. But Gull stepped up quickly and attempted to quell the bloodshed because his nephew was going to be up for leadership and he didn't want to see the boy die. Sadly, the boy died in a other circumstance involving a gambling den. And he has been out for blood ever since. So what we're walking into is a fight. Whether it's a big fight or if it's a fight among those who want to be leader, that is really up to all of you. What is your ultimate intention here? So that I know if I'm going to have to kill my brothers.
Who is he addressing? Is he just addressing the four of us and like?
He's addressing the four of you, and those three are standing back, and they are looking intently, trying to listen in, but he is clearly conspiring with you.
Now,
in this circumstance,
so you said he looks like he's young and he's huge. Does he look like he's a simple boy?
No, he is. There is a lot of intelligence behind his eyes.
Okay.
And a lot of experience.
In that case, Nix reaches into his jacket and he slides out the same folder that he slid out to the Eruvian general and hands it to him. He hands him the contract that basically outlines everything it outlined previously. That under us, we will be the new ward bosses. Everyone here pays up to us. You will give us.
As you're handing it to him, he just pushes it back on you and says, I don't have time to read that. I need to know what your ultimate intent is here.
Your previous position was ward boss of Crowsfoot. That is now mine.
And so we work for you if we win?
All of you work for me. Bowerstone, are you in... You're just Bowerstone, right?
Oh, shit. Good question.
Yeah, that is actually a really good question because you're the only one that's actually in doubt here.
I mean, you were not in you were just Bowerstone in the last meeting, so...
Yeah. I might be Bowerstone for the fact of safety.
I mean, Bower Bomb did kill them all, so...
Yeah, so Bower... Hello there.
Yeah. So as he says, so we all work for you now, he says, everything falls under the blanket of Lord Alderman here, but you can report to any one of us. And if you don't, well, heads will roll.
Are you gonna tell them what they get, or are you just
It
gonna
depends
tell them
it depends what he says right now.
I mean, they get what it is no matter what.
Yeah, if he responds like, "Oh yeah, sure, we'll do it," then no, well, no, sweet.
No, but either way, he gets it.
Yeah.
Like, someone gets it, so
Yeah.
wouldn't you offer what it is?
What does he say, Johnny, to that? Is he stunned into silence?
He's contemplative, and he's concerned because it's obvious. You can read it on his face that it's obvious that he had a different expectation coming in to this. Now, whether that was the general had said something different to him, or he had his own plans, it's obvious that he's struggling with something for a second. And finally, after that plays across his face, he says, I'm not sure I have any choice here.
That was my intent. I don't care who leads your organization as long as the leader signs that document or shakes my hand and agrees to that document. Now,
I guess I'm going to have to win. And he looks at you for the first time, looking directly at Nyx, and you see anger and blood, like just blood lust in his face.
Nyx shrugs. Says, now, what do you get for winning in this deal?
It doesn't matter at this point.
What did you want, Gillis?
Well,
And he turns and he begins to walk inside.
what do the other three do?
They follow him once he starts to move in.
Steam. I think I wore the wrong suit.
It's not the suit, Alderman. It's the man in it.
Well said. And so the three of you step inside?
Yeah, the four.
Okay, so I'm going to describe what I think the clock tower looks like, the nest looks like in my head. If you guys at any time have stuff that you want to add to it, please throw it in. Because it's essentially an aging clock tower from a previous time. Crowsfoot is one of the older districts in respect to the structures that are there, and a lot of the structures have been built over. This structure dates back to the same time period as the Lost District in a lot of ways, in the way that it's constructed. A lot of brick and stone shaped around wood and plaster, but very much that 200 or 300 year ago kind of a feel. However, the building is a little bit dilapidated. It is starting to fall apart. So while the structure itself may be intact, what's inside the stairs that they lead you up is a little bit rickety. And you hear, the moment that you enter the clock tower and you begin to walk the stairs, you hear a cacophony of yelling and arguing coming from a level up. And when you step into the clock tower, it's quite a large structure in respect to its floor space, probably a good 100 feet square. And inside of the interior of that, at least in this area where you're walking around, as you're walking up the stairway along the sides, there is a bunch of gears and mechanisms, but they are all rusted or locked into place or in disrepair. So the cogs, when they meet together, some of them are seated correctly, some of them are off, some of them are off to the side, but it's clear that the mechanisms that led up to the second level, of which the floor you can see as you're continuing to walk, up the stairs, the shaft that appeared, and went through up as a drive, a piston, or not a piston, I can't think of an axle of some kind, is now missing from that, and there is a hole, and that is where the sound is coming from. And it is not completely dark in there, but there's very little light, ambient light in there, and it's coming from the lamps that lean on, or that are along the stairway path that leads you up to the second floor. And so as you reach essentially what is the landing of the second floor, the cacophony of noise just kind of settles for just a second and becomes muted until you walk through into the second level. And what you walk into on the second level is a big fight happening. There are two individuals surrounded by a number of other men and women in the center of this ring, or as you're surrounding this ring in the center where there are two fighting, and they are fighting around the gaping hole that stands 5 by 5 in the center of the room. And so there's a fisticuff, battle happening right now between two women who are clearly fighting for position of some kind. And so as you come in, Gillis is towering among all of the others. And he stands at the back. And as he sees you, come up behind him, he just kind of motions you off to just kind of, off to the side and get, back. And so the fight continues, and you're able to watch the fight as it happens. And eventually one of the women is able to get a good hit on the other one, thus kind of knocking her down. And it is at the moment that she is knocked down that the woman who knocked her down grabs her, drags her over to the hole, and the woman says, yelling and screaming, "Do you give up? Is it over? Do you give up? I don't want to do this to you. Give up." As the other woman spits in her face. "Damn it," she yells, and pushes her into the hole.
Nix.
Turning around, the woman looks at the crowd as the crowd is roaring, and she raises her arms. "Who's next? Come on, who's next?"
Steam walks up beside Gillis, even though he was waved off. And
he waved you to step back, but yeah, okay. But you walk up to him.
I just stand facing the ring and the pit, and he doesn't look at the larger man, but he just says,
"Is this what you want, Gillis? To teach these crows to fly again? Your size will not matter."
"This is not your fight."
"Is it yours?"
And he begins to step forward. And at the moment that he steps into the ring, the woman looks shocked. And the crowd gets quiet as he steps in. He looks at the woman and he says, "Yield now. I do not want to hurt you." And she spits in his face, pulls a blade out from the back of her belt, and holds it in front of him. And the fight commences. It goes on for a short period of time. The blade is of little effect against Gillis because he's able to outmaneuver her. He moves faster than you would expect. And then he's able to hold her at a bay as he knocks her repeatedly left and right across the floor. She falls, gets back up, falls, and gets back up. You want Gillis to win, but honestly, you're respecting this woman's ability to just get back up and get into the fight. She gets a good cuts on Gillis, but at the end of the day, nothing ever lands in a way that's going to hurt him. And it is at that point when he hits her one final time, when she will not yield, that he picks her up full on by her scruff, carries her over to the hole, and says, "Please yield. I do not want to kill you." And she tries to wriggle around and tries to bite him, and that's when he just drops her. And Gillis turns around and steps up and says, "Anyone else?" And this goes on for a good 20 or 30 minutes as he takes on a couple of different people. Some women, some men stepping up, some almost as big as Gillis, but none able to best him. And the crowd begins to see that the circumstances are changing. However, it is at this time that somebody finally notices the four of you. And there is whispering among the crowd, and there are looks in your direction. So it is after the fourth fight where Gillis again is forced to drop somebody down the hole. that the crowd begins to quiet. And stepping into the ring is an older crow, somebody who has seen their better days and is clearly not a part of the fight, who's not stepping in for the fight, but is there to make sure that whatever rules that have been established are followed. And the person voices and says, "You there, who are you?" Pointing in the Dwarvier's general direction. And as Gillis tries to speak, he is unable to interrupt because the man tells him that he must be quiet. And Gillis respects this and steps back.
Nyx looks to Steam and kind of smirks at him, and then turns back to the old man and says, "You can consider us conscientious observers. Carry on."
This is a crow's place.
Not for
Only
much
crows are allowed here.
For now.
If you keep killing one another, there will be nothing left in here alive. We've seen the death of 5 crows so far. Valiant fighters who would not yield, yet you threw them down a hole. Impressive.
Are you leaving, or are you stepping into the ring to become a crow?
Do I have to throw someone down a hole?
Are you leaving, or are you stepping in the ring to become a crow?
Do I have to throw someone down a hole?
Blades start to come out.
There we go.
Are they all, like, everyone's drawing blades around? Like, even the people that were not...
Everyone is beginning to draw blades.
Yeah, Nyx just kind of, like, rubs his head again, like the last combat, and says, "This will be your last chance. You are free to continue your fight. We only care who remains standing after you're done. But the chances are better in our favor if you had even the smallest inkling of who we are, that none of you will remain standing when we're done. Please continue."
At that mention, and you get a general account of how many people are in the room. There's about 100 people in there. And they're kind of compacted together. But all of them are focused on the 4 of you at this point. With those blades drawn, they're cocking their ear back to the old man, waiting for the word. I will ask one last time, he says.
Steam takes off his shirt and starts walking forward.
Ooh.
And as he hands it back to OC, he says, and he says this to all of them,
If I say my sister's name, close your eyes.
OC will put her hand on his shoulder. A god must be strong. And take his jacket and fold it, her shirt and fold it over her arm.
he walks towards their hole.
Okay.
Is this what you would have? The death of more of your flock. Throwing them down a hole until you are tired of watching your friends die. Is this the way of the crows?
Gillis. The old man steps back. You were not supposed to come here. Gillis raises his arms. I don't want to do this. Yield.
I don't want to throw you down a hole, Gillis. You've already had enough pain in your life.
His arms begin to become even more in a defensive fashion. And you see the anger beginning to play across his face. And he says, please, I don't want to do this. Yield.
And if I do, will you become leader?
I turn
No.
to the Steam turns.
But you
to
will
the
be a
old-
crow. And for the first time, something is off about this. You see that Gillis, his skin is getting a little darker.
Oh, fuck me.
As shapes begin to appear, as you see him getting more and more angry. Please, with one last desperate look of pleading, yield. And that's when his eyes begin to expand. The irises begin to expand as if consuming the rest of the visible eye.
Is he purple in the field, Johnny?
Yes.
Which purple?
Demon.
I should have taken fucking notes.
Purple is Leviathan.
Well, sorry. He is
Red.
Red. Then, yeah.
red.
Steam keeps him in his sight and looks at the other crows.
You are comfortable with the demon leading you then?
And he moves really slowly at first. You have been warned.
So
And when he hits you, it's hard. You gonna roll to resist?
Actually, Johnny, I have a little thing called reflexes, which means when it comes to moving, I always move first.
Yeah, except in this case, he's a skilled fighter. He's one of those skilled guys. That doesn't quite necessarily work in this case.
Well, it says
Yeah. They act simultaneously.
if he's got reflexes, then we've got to roll for it.
No, they act simultaneously.
If he has
So he's
reflexes as an ability.
I don't ever roll for anything. He is going to hit you. You need to roll to resist at this point and do what you're going to do.
Can I give him my special ability, Trust in Me? I give a +1 die to a person I have an intimate relationship with.
Sure.
Ooh.
I'm not sure that necessarily counts as intimacy, though.
It says the group gets to define what intimacy means. It doesn't mean exclusively a romantic
I don't
relationship.
think that
I'm not
works.
suggesting that it is a romantic relationship. What I am suggesting is that the relationship between Bowerstone and Steam up until this point has been more of a professional relationship, and that does not imply intimacy.
That's not how
How
that
do you
ability
want to
works.
play this? How do you-
Not necessarily.
That's not how that
Hold on,
ability-
how does that not... Okay, just
That's
say
not how that
it,
ability
Mike.
works. It says you get a +1 dice versus someone whom you have an intimate relationship
Oh,
with.
crap. Wrong person.
Right, right. It's it's
Even better.
I'll play Foresight then.
That one works.
I'll
Can
play
you roll it
Foresight.
so I can read it? I'm just curious.
How do you roll them?
Click
Just
on the
click on
bell
them?
next to it.
Yeah, a little bell underneath
Okay.
the button.
Okay.
Yep. Now, how are you assisting him?
So I'm guessing, like, what's the reaction of the room? Is it quiet? Are there people shouting?
People
Is
are
everyone-
quiet, yes.
So I would be the loud
there's
guy.
there's an intense amount of interest in what's going on. Blades are out. It's a very tense situation.
So I would be the loud guy in the back, shouting out, "You've got this!"
So moral support.
Yeah.
So
basically-
moral support. Okay. All right. Well,
Thank you,
Steve,
Holtzman.
you got this, buddy.
Little pep talk before he goes out there.
+1 to resist punches.
Thank you.
so are you going to use that in your resist, or are you going to use that on your attack? Because you're moving simultaneously, right? Reflexes. You're moving simultaneously.
So we do something at the same time, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You can resist it simultaneously as he hits you, or you can take your action simultaneously as he hits you.
Yeah, he's going intangible.
Okay. When you go intangible, that's going to be your resistance roll,
Yeah.
because that's not how resistance works.
Oh, okay. I thought we could do something at the same time.
Okay, so you're not actually resisting him hitting you.
Yeah, he's throwing a punch, and he threw a punch.
Still resistant. He can hit anybody in the ghost field.
He's a demon.
Okay.
He's not necessarily a demon in the normal sense. Just for the table purposes.
Is he Taikarosi?
There's a cutter ability that just can do that.
And
I know that.
He has a very particular set of abilities. Reflexes is one of them. The ability to hit ghosts is the other. And there's actually a third. I'm not going to tell you.
Specific set of abilities that make it hard.
Okay, well then, yeah, go ahead and don't you roll the attack, Johnny, and then we find out what I do to resist it. Or you tell me.
That's not how attacks work in this game from the GM. Remember, I throw something at you. You have to resist it, and he's a skilled fighter. He technically goes first.
Okay, well,
so because of your reflexes, you go the same time.
Okay.
So it's physical. So it would be what? What's the other one? Yeah, prowess.
Prowess.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I just click on that. Where's my? There we go. No bonus dice. It's just a straight roll, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Unless you want to push yourself or take a bonus. Hey, 6 works because he would have thrown harm at you of level 1, but you resist it. So, and you know, no stress. So you resist it without taking any stress whatsoever. All right. His punch swings at you rather than, you see it coming at you inside of the ghost field, right? Like you see the manifestation of it as it comes at you, and you just kind of, Nego step aside from it. And now you have an opportunity to do something.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and give him what for and see what we can do here.
All right.
Since this is not... I'm coming out of the ghost field. What do you think, Johnny? Prow or skirmish? Which one?
Why are you coming out of the ghost field? Can't you operate in the ghost field and do things?
Yeah, if he can touch me, I can touch him. So I'm just asking... Normally when I am in the ghost field, it's prowl. But since he can, in all likelihood, see me, I would guess I would probably...
Well, you went intangible. You didn't go completely invisible.
Okay, so skirmish?
Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever you think makes sense in respect to a physical attack in the ghost field.
Yeah, I would say skirmish then. I think that's what we did whenever I fought the
girl. Yeah.
Risky?
Should we just call her Handy?
Yeah.
Yeah, this isn't a controlled situation because you don't know what else he's doing. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Effect, I think, is going to be standard at least.
Okay.
Because it's not a situation where you're defending yourself or just kind of you're calling a target. There could be any number of possibilities that happen. So go ahead and throw it at him.
Okay. And then Bowerstone, I get an extra one from you?
Yeah, you do, buddy. I'm your cheerleader in the corner.
You also have a position if you want to use it.
You do have a position if you want to use it. Improve it to controlled.
Steam.
Not yet. I have a crit too.
You do have a crit.
Let's just do this right now.
Nice. So with a 6, what is it that you do? Like, describe to us what you do to him. Because his punch goes through, you do the whole Neo step aside thing, and what happens next from Steam?
I take his knee out.
Ooh. Nice. Okay. Describe how you take his knee out.
Back of the kneecap with the foot, swing back through, reverse momentum, take him just above the thigh on the swing around. It's a whiplash effect. If he's had knee damage before, it's going to hurt like the dickens.
Okay. So as you do that, he goes down screaming, right? And you're standing over him. But he's not an inexperienced fighter. And so as he goes down, he's screaming. He just swings out and tries to basically sweep you off your feet with his arm. And it comes faster than you would even expect. Like there's something going on here. He is super fast. He is probably the fastest person you have ever fought. And so when he swings out, he's going to knock you off your ass unless you resist it.
It's just I mean, The damage would be getting knocked down, right? Getting knocked prone.
You would get knocked prone. It would be level 1 harm and have the wind basically knocked out of you. So you would be like in a shocked state.
And how much do I resist for? Is that what's the stress on that?
6 minus whatever your highest roll is.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to resist again.
Okay, great.
I've got plenty. I've got enough to. That's a prowess roll again.
Mm-hmm.
No bonus die.
I'm going to chuck in my other one if I can.
Okay, I'll save that one for.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you take 2 stress. All right. So describe what it's like when you avoid his super fast, desire to just kind of throw his arm out and kind of sweep you off your feet.
Steam jumps backwards, gets elevation, and for a second floats and lazily kind of backflips down and touches the ground way too slow for gravity to actually mean anything.
Okay. All right. So now he's got his arm swinged out. He's on the ground with his knee. He's in a lot of pain, and he's kind of exposed. What do you do next?
Yield, Gillis. No crows need to die here today. No more, anyway.
And Steam yells to the rest of them,
"This is not the way of a flock."
Do you turn away from him?
I don't turn away from him. But he says it loud enough for everyone to hear.
"This is not the way of a flock. This is not the way of crows. Crows fight for one another. They die for one another. They do not throw one another down fucking holes."
So as you're saying all of that, you see him again make a move incredibly quick. And using his one good leg, he's able to get it under him, and he launches at you using the full force and weight of his body. And he is going to hit you and knock you down. And you're going to take level 2 harm from this, because not only is he going to basically knock the wind out of you, the weight of his body is going to have some tangible internal effect on you. So there's going to be some internal bleeding happening in this situation. So you can either take it or you can resist. Wait, hold on a second. Do you have your armor ability up?
Yes. Yeah, I'm wearing my armor. Yeah.
Okay, you have your armor up. All right, so it'll be level 1 harm at this point. Because otherwise it would the level 1 harm that he did before would have started chipping away at your armor. Because I didn't take that in consideration before. This is level 2 damage that he's trying to do to you. It'll reduce it to level 1 because of your armor immediately, and then you can resist the rest.
Could we take off the last attack sequence and I just won't have armor anymore?
Yes.
Okay, and then this is level 2. I'll resist it then.
Okay.
Since I lost my armor in one of the first exchanges, I'll go ahead and resist here. And I get a 1 from you, Alderman?
I believe he did say yes.
Okay.
Yeah, buddy.
And that's just a resist. Ka-chow!
Nice. So you resist the level 1, or so you resist it down to level 1. And as he lands on top of you, you realize that he's kind of in a vulnerable position, but he does level 1 harm to you, which is he basically shocked. He knocks the wind out of you and causes a little bit of shock. So you're just out of breath. Now, in this fight, what that means is with a level 1 harm, you now have a negative to your position, right? So anytime it's risky, it's going to be desperate. Anytime it's controlled, it's going to be risky. So this is where your crit and your +1 position is going to come into effect. And remember, the table has positions as well, because I think we hit the retweet goal and we just didn't acknowledge it. With that particular circumstance, they can provide you with their position as well.
Okay, what am I up to, Mike? Do you know what my full complement of stuff is? I know I have a crit, and I know I have a...
I do. Hold on just a second. I'll print that.
Okay.
Yep. Whoop, shit. Not that one. Sorry about that. Hold on. Here we go.
I mean, I'm just happy to be out of the alleyway.
Only that layer had like a window.
Okay, I'm gonna.
Actually, there's an update to that. Hold on just 1 second.
Why's my name Bottom?
Okay, Johnny, let's clear the decks. I'm going to use the crit, and I'm going to increase the position away from the stunned, get it back up to maximum potential. I'm going to take this guy out.
What does that mean? Describe it to me, please, because you're currently out of breath, shocked, and he's laying on top of you. What is that? How do you get out from under the circumstance and then, essentially take him out?
Okay, so using the crit, he drives his head into the throat of the demon. He then places his hands on the shoulder of the demon and slides himself forward, taking the back of his head to the jaw and his knee to the jaw as he slides out from underneath of him, rolls away and slides to a stop and sees what happens to him.
With the crit, I'd like you to describe what the damage does to him and what you mean by taking him out.
I preferably would like to knock him unconscious. That's
okay.
What I'm going for. Like several headshots, throat shot for oxygen, double jaw shot with the back of the head and the knee, in hoping to, loopy him or knock him on his ass or knock him out, preferably.
Okay, give me just a second. I need to go back and look at your rolls real quick. Prowess was resist. Prowess was resist. There's a skirmish. Okay, so
he got a 6 in there, yeah.
Well, you got a 6 in the skirmish. So there was a 4-segment clock on him getting through his defenses, essentially. You got 3 through 3 of the 4. I'm going to say that with the crit, you get through that 4th, basically making him vulnerable and then hurting him badly, but he's not completely incapacitated yet, right? He's not knocked out. So as you're coming up and you do that, he's in an immense amount of pain, and he's still trying to get up in the fight. And it is at that point that you get a full feeling of who this particular person is. You realize that he's Taikarosi, right?
Right.
That you realize that he is one of your lost brothers. His skin, when it darkened, shapes started to appear all over it. Those shapes, as they stand out now, as you can see that his blood is pumping and he is in desperation, his power, as you believe it, is really beginning to activate. And you see that where his bones would be, the lines of where his bones would be in his side of his skin, there are outlines of fuzzy, essentially symbols that represent the bone structure inside of him. And they've just come into bright, to focus through all of this. But now they're beginning to glow bright, and you realize that he's at that point where everything who he is activated, and he is trying desperately to do something to survive, to thrive, to win, right? And as he's beginning to just kind of try to get to a position of standing up, he's looking at you, and you see that his eyes, they're now completely white except for there are points right in the center.
Steam rips off his goggles and allows the smoke to come out. And he says, "Brother, this is done for more reasons than we can count."
And with that, you hear a growl come from his throat. And for the first time, Gillis's voice is not Gillis's. It is deeper, it is darker, and it says, "I will kill you." And he just jumps with everything, leg broken and busted, jaw just sort of kind of not completely on its hinges, bloody, And as he begins to make that leap towards you, he is again reaching out, and his hands look a tiny bit bigger as he just kind of reaches towards your throat, trying to, that last desperate action. You can see the glow of those symbols, those lines on him begin to glow very bright red.
Steam jumps into the air to meet him.
Well, and the rest of the crowd is awed and stunned in silence at this, as there is a little bit of gasp and some screams of in complete surprise. And so as he jumps at you, you meet him. He's going to hit you again. He's going to hit you and knock you down and grab you by the throat. Roll to resist.
And this is where I expend my special. And as you leap to meet him, you recall in the small of your back where Nick slid his dagger before you entered the fight. And you have the Demon Bane blade.
Flashback?
Nope, using Mastermind.
Okay. Perfect. Now, he's leaping at you. Roll to resist.
You'd also get plus 1d from that.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to use that in the resist, or do you want to use that with the next attack?
I'm going to use my crit success I just got donated.
Okay, great. So go ahead and
Thank
roll
you,
that resist with. Go ahead and roll that resist.
Thank you, Kit.
Ka-chow!
Ka-chow. All right. Steam, in this perfect way that he does it, tell me how he just dances out of this or gets around this last desperate action of Gillis. Desperate brother Taikarosi attacking you.
As Gillis jumps in the air, mid-air, towards Steam, Steam waits for a moment and then launches and meets him at the apex of his jump before he comes down. And as he pulls the dagger out, brings it down, and drives it into his knee. This is not a kill shot. This is a you are no longer fighting shot. So he goes up and brings it down, jams it into his knee, looks up at him as they're still in the air, kind of twists to the side, and he said,
"No one kills anyone today, brother."
And lands on the other side.
Blade goes into his knee.
Does not break off.
Blade goes into the knee. An immense amount of pain is caused to him as he screams, and you do this, and his momentum continues, and he kind of tumbles and rolls on the floor. I'm assuming that you pulled the blade out before, he passes you. Essentially, it's a stab and a come out, right?
Like a slash, yeah.
Right. Okay, and so he continues the momentum and kind of rolls and falls and lands on the floor. And there is stunned silence as the old man steps over, cautiously looking at you as he moves over to Gillis to feel for a pulse. And he's there for a second. He says he looks up at you and he says it's faint, but given the rules, he is incapacitated. And he steps up. He stands up and he walks over to you very slowly. "You, sir, are a crow." And he extends his arm out in an open palm kind of a fashion to accept your hand.
Steam takes it and pulls him in close, and he says,
"You are correct, sir, except for one point. I am the crow."
When you say that, he just begins to step back. And he's not sure how to react, and as he continues to step back for just a second.
Steam tosses the dagger to Nyx.
Looking around the room as not even acknowledging that particular event. He kind of looks at the crowd. Does anyone wish to challenge this brother? And his scan he looks at each and every face in front of the groups in the crowd. And each time his gaze meets somebody else, a person nods their head away, or they look down, or they avoid his gaze completely before even getting there. Then it is decided, he says, finally, after all the circumstance of him questioning the crowd. What is your name, brother?
Steam. Get him to a Physica now.
That is being taken care of. As you can see that there is a series of people just kind of milling around Gillis.
And Steam turns back around to the pit that leads to the lower floor,
and he says, and cover this fucking hole.
Man walks up to you, says that is not tradition, but that has been decided later. And for the first time, you see the weight behind his words. And you realize that he is brokering caution. Someone new to the crows. Might I suggest that we have counsel before you make decrees?
Just make sure no one else is thrown down it.
The deed is done. The circumstances are now that
Steam walks off.
You will not ignore me, Steam. Blades begin to come out. You may be the leader of the crows, but I am the voice. I am the memory. There are only two of us. One the master, one the apprentice. Gull understood that, as did the previous. You will show us respect, or we will all fall upon your blade.
Then walk with me, memory, and be prepared to make new ones. I head to the roof.
And Steam starts walking to the top of the crow's nest.
After a little bit of murmuring and some acknowledgement, the old man gets them to put their blades away. And he follows you. You see, as you're ascending the stairs towards the clock tower itself, the actual body of the clock faces that face the four corners of Doskvol. One of them missing, looking off into the distance to the north, towards the docks, and to the distant bright lights of White Crown. He joins you as you gaze out upon Crow's Foot from the crow's nest. You see, as you were ascending those stairs, that Gillis is being tended to. And that he is being carried away by multiple strong men because he is quite a large fellow, and they are tending to his wounds. And as the old man joins you at the clock tower face, as you're looking out north, he says, "My name is Dahl. You will respect my position as I will respect your authority. Otherwise, as I said, there will be no end to the blood."
I understand, Dahl. Do you see the city?
We gaze upon our deathbed.
Not for much longer. The crows will fly again, Dahl. We are still in the nest.
He turns and looks at him for the first time, offers the briefest of smiles, and he says,
Give me a few men, I have a barge to move.
And that's where we'll end it. And that's where we're going to call the session tonight, guys. So I think everything else, I don't want to diminish any of that with XP, so we'll do XP off screen again.
So do we own Crow's Foot now? Just
I'm just going to leave it up in the air at that point. And I'm going to throw it back to Mike because I don't know what the fuck else to do right now.
So guys, look for this episode on YouTube later this week called A Murder of Crows. And the Murderer of Crows, first of all, I can thank Luis for that name. That was great. Also, the Murderer of Crows, Greg, who are you? What are you doing here? And how did you enjoy tonight's episode?
Oh, I had a blast, man. Grimjack21502 on Twitch and Twitter. And this was something else. This was fun. We'll get to see where it goes. I wasn't quite sure that this was the exact course or direction tonight would be taking, but we'll see how it develops next week. But it's cool. I really enjoyed it. I thought Johnny did a fantastic job. Well, thank you to everybody. Was it Kit Battlebeard that gave me that last crit?
It was.
Thank you.
That fight was going to be a lot harder without those crits. I'm glad that you used them.
That's awesome.
I know. Thank you so much.
So, dominating the crows, dominating the red sashes on the other hand, Miss Ginger Ninja, who are you? What are you doing here? And what did you think of tonight's game?
I'm Miss Ginger Ninja. You can find me on my channel playing video games. You can find me here twice a week, and soon to be doing one-shots on Saturdays. But tonight was awesome. I hope the sisters enjoyed my note, and everyone else. And good luck to everyone, and enjoy the game.
Oh, man. Slade, as talkative as always, and equally as useful, who are you? What are you doing here? And what did you think of tonight?
I am Slade for Crit Dice Game. You can follow me and do that jazz. I'm the man in the alley, the man in the corner, and soon to be the man in the action. We hope.
We hope. And last and definitely least, Johnny, who are you? What are you doing here? And what did you think of tonight's episode?
I don't have a reaction yet. I'm still processing. I did not expect a quarter of that. So good job, guys. Excellent game tonight. I'm Johnny. I'm the GM for 620. Run this across 3 channels. On my channel on Tuesday nights where you can see The Void. Tonight you see us on unMadeGaming's channel with the Shroud. And then tomorrow night you can find me over on Not So Speedrun's channel, Speedy's channel, doing the Phantom. This is a crazy affair, guys. Not quite where I expected to be at this point, but holy shit, I can't wait for next week. Next week is going to be ridiculous.
It's going to be fun. So next week, for those of you interested, is the season finale of The Shroud, The Phantoms, and I believe The Void? The Void, however, is starting a week early into Season 3. Or 2 weeks earlier, or something like that. However, next week we will be back with a Talks in the Dark, where we reminisce and discuss the events of Season 2 and our hopes and thoughts for Season 3. Tomorrow you can find us here, the same bat time, same bat channel, 7 p.m. For Havoc in the Hinterlands. There will be nothing really going on this weekend. However, we are going to be supporting Encounter Mitch, who is doing an Extra Life Marathon on Saturday. So definitely stop by to check that out and donate all your hard-earned money to charity. And we'll be back on Sunday for more of Simbaroom. And with that, guys, we're going to host our friend Bubbernot. So go check that guy out. Give him all your hot sticky raid love, and all of us from you. Or all of us to you, rather, I guess. Bye-bye.